Welcome to the Grey Range Podcast. My name is David Rousseau. We're going to explore the poetry of how we live, how we learn, and how we find our way along this strange path we call life. If you are curious about people, their stories, and all things savage and wonderful, then join me on the Grey Range.
It's on now.
All right, we're live again on the Grey Range Podcast. Myself, David Rousseau, and my co-host, Lucas Orich. And today we have with us Mike Davison. So welcome, man. How you doing?
Pretty chill. It's actually been a really tough couple of weeks at home, but we're getting through things well. And I've actually been looking forward to this evening for a while.
I'm glad to hear it, man.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, it's always a wild time of year based with family life and
retail
business.
hell.
Yeah, you guys are in the thick of it, hey?
Yeah, we are, yeah.
Thick of it.
It is the season, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start them like we start them all. First of all, thank you guys for coming. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, peppermint.
Peppermint.
Straight medicinal. I like it. So I got a piece here. It's actually been one I wanted to read for a while. And I don't know if it's timely or if it's suitable for the age, but I think when I was reading it, obviously this collection I wrote in 2016. So sometimes I'll read them and I'll be like, oh, that's more suitable today, or maybe just the day, the mood of the day. But I was looking for something that, kind of capture a moment, and I think this one's pretty good. So it's called High Flyers and Deep Divers. The weight of the dagger drags your hand down so close to the throat. All you have to do is let go. The answer is not in the asking. It's in the silence that follows. I have not oppressed myself enough today. I am far too free with words I cast away. Have a care for what I'm thinking, what I say, because the tongue is always sharper than the blade. Comfort just cloisters and covets. The taste of the memory of it drives me insane, and with love, it's so high I must climb to its summit. Then back to this madness I plummet. Only 1 second I'm using, time and a place of my choosing, based on the breaks and the bruising. They're raising the stakes and I'm losing. I can't imagine the feeling of dreaming my way into being. I'm hearing a voice in the ceiling, clear through the noise of the screaming, telling me that I'm the one, that you're the one. Never were all alone, just come undone. Lost her way on the road, prodigal son. Daughter of father's affection, please come home. Master of self, gratification and wealth, abuse and assassin and stealth, slipping behind your mind, killing off everyone else. We could become, we could be done, live by the sword and we sleep with a gun, safe when we keep ourselves, locked in our prison cells, hell we create and insane we become. See now, I'm not bound, I just can't let go. I've wrapped my arms around a cloud of smoke, believing in a dream that isn't so. A tether lasts forever when it's wrapped around your soul, and down we go. Only high flyers and deep divers know the world for what it is. The rest of us might only get a glimpse. When our head is light and body going limp, we let the dagger slip.
I'm going to steal something from one of your past guests quickly here. Your grasp on English language is incredible, Dave, and I know that you used to spend time as a kid reading the dictionary, but I'm going to steal something from Kenton, who said, you have an amazing ability to conjure imagery in your listener's mind. I can't get from a page what you deliver verbally when you're doing this, and great job.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Appreciate this, mofo, because here's your challenge. The whole body of that poem needs to be a rap song. Seriously, I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, oh,
it could be.
Man,
Yeah, but who's going to rap it? We got to find a rapper.
So once upon a time, I've written a lot of music. I actually have a collection of like death metal. I wrote a death metal album.
Makes sense.
And I have written, I probably have 2 different rhyme books where I've written rap music. Rap music was the first music I ever wrote. It was the first thing I ever wrote. Back in like the early 80s, that was the first music I liked. Like when you're growing up and you get off like the whatever your parents were listening to, and it's the kids in the neighborhood that like that cool older kids that like bring something out. It was like Ice-T and NWA and 2 Live Crew and all that kind of stuff that was really popular in the late 80s. And like the first albums that I bought were like these gangster rap albums from back in the day. And
Yeah, man.
yeah, we used to, freestyle in front of the schoolyard and do rap battles and all that kind of stuff. And
Seriously, it was the beat from like 8 Mile was in my head the whole time. I don't know where I picked up the rhythm, but it was there.
yeah, well, and it's part of it. It's part of poetry. In a lot of it is rhythm, right? So rap music is more of a modern form of lyrical poetry.
Yeah.
And some of them have that when I write them. It'll be maybe a flow. And then, some of them are just, like literally like grabbing words like a clump of shit and throwing them at a wall and being like, there.
Something stuck.
Yeah, that's what I feel like today. Like that's how much sense the world makes to me today, right?
Yeah.
The idea is just capturing that thing. But the reason why that one kind of caught me was for this conversation is I know a lot of people who do a lot of different stuff in life. A lot of people just kind of find their lane early. They kind of find the thing they want to do, whether that's a 9-to-5 job, whether that's family, whether that's a sport. But they find a piece of identity, and there's very few people that I know who have the courage to kind of reinvent themselves. And you're someone who did. You're someone who had a career in one field, and then in a very short time took a huge risk in purchasing the business that you currently run. So just for everybody who doesn't know, Mike is the owner of Barton's Big Country. That's why I'm wearing the hat. I figured I'd rep the set tonight.
I love it.
And I'm curious, how did that come about? How did you, because you were into oil and gas, energy like everybody else up here, the vast majority. And then getting out of that is always hard for anybody. I know a lot of people that try to transition out of the oil field, and it's not an easy thing to do. But how did you make that leap?
Dude, I'd have to start that one a long time ago. So
Started in the deserts of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, which is inland.
yeah.
Sure. Take it back to the beginning.
Tis natty. She's a seaboarding coast. Basically, the oil field came by accident because I needed to do something. I knew that the bills weren't going to get paid on their own. I knew that everything I was doing to scrounge by, the 5 jobs at one point that I was working to try and pay the rent, they weren't going to do it. So I had to figure out something to do. And I got into oil field operations, initially field work, so largely around wellheads, post-drilling completions and such like that. And man, did it pay the bills.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah. Let's back up a little bit, actually.
And just one thing, Mike, just bring that mic about a fist from your face. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Mom spaghetti. Okay.
Now he's about to drop some bars.
Fuck, that'd be awesome.
So actually, I think we should back up a little further because I'm driven by a lot of things that happened when I was much younger than that. I know what hunger is, and I know I'll never be hungry again. So I moved out here in 97 from east coast of Nova Scotia. South shore of Nova Scotia on the east coast. After seeing the pay stub for my first welfare check.
Oh, dang.
All right, so that's the environment that I grew up back in the day. My dad always had a good job. Mechanical engineering technologist. He always did well. He worked with food processing basically his whole career. So he designed food processing equipment, largely with the fishing industry. Always had a good income, but the way that things worked back then, if you made enough money on paper, your kids couldn't qualify for student loans. And
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he made too much to qualify, but not enough literally to put any of us through. So.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, I was actually coming out of my second year of grade 12.
You liked it so much you just did it twice, hey?
Dude, I was a deeply unmotivated student. And it's okay.
You're among good company then.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Actually, God's honest truth, I graduated my second year of grade 12 with a 50% in grade 10 math. And it was the dude who was the teacher that signed off just to get me the heck out of school.
Dude, I challenged the lowest grade of math that you needed to graduate was called Math 23.
Okay.
So I challenged the exam. I got 55% and never touched math again.
Sayonara.
I graduated on work experience credits. I came back the next year and he's like, "What are you doing here?" The principal, he like meets me in the door. I'm like, "I need 3 credits." He's like, "Well, come to my office, Mr. Orch." He's like, "Didn't you work all summer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I sure did." He's like, "All right, how do I get in touch with your employer?" So I went to school for 1 day, got my 3 credits, and then I didn't actually have to go back for a full year, but he did not want me back in that.
Yeah. No, I graduated through a program in Grande Prairie for the pregnant teen program. They called it the Bridge Network back in the day. And it was in its first full year. And that's what it was a pregnant teen program. So they could get a GED.
Oh, okay.
And
gotcha.
the instructor that was running that program had taught in the composite high school. And basically things were going on in my life. I thought, short story is, I thought my mom was going to go to jail, and I didn't want my sister taken into foster care or have to go live with family. So I was like, I'm going to complete grade 12 because we were already in government housing, and see if we can keep the house and if we can keep the place, and my sister could stay with me. I have a full-time job, and I'm going to school. Because I don't know how long I don't think she would have gone long, but this was kind of my mentality at the time. She never ended up going to jail. She had done some stuff that warranted some judiciary
action.
Yeah, some stuff.
Review.
But my mom is way more gangster than I'll ever be. But so I just ended up finishing it through correspondence, and like I think I needed like 3 classes or something like that, and got a job at 17 full time, and just never stopped working. Yeah.
So you graduate your second year of grade 12, and then what does the scene look like for jobs out there?
Yeah, so deeply religious family. I grew up in a Mormon household, and I came home a little bit shittied one night after my 19th birthday, and was given kind of the ultimatum, to clean up and basically ship up or shape out, or how does that say? Shape up or ship out. Yeah, thank you. On the ball or on the bus. Mikey chose the bus. So I was at odds with a lot of things that were part of my upbringing at that time, and my older brother had already been living in working in Vancouver, Maple Ridge, living on Victoria Island, and basically sent me the invite to come out and work with him. So he was working in sheet metal at the time.
Okay.
And so I had it would have been the end of June, I guess. That was be my birthday / grad / celebratory week. Anyway, so I left home at 19. Nothing super interesting about that. Lived with my brother and his family. Working sheet metal in Maple Ridge, and then on the weekends we went to their house on Vancouver Island, Victoria Island. In Victoria on Vancouver Island. Correct me, guys, when I screw this up.
It's all good, man. For all I know, there is a Victoria Island out there. Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have
So
a map.
that turned into a bit of a party time for me, actually. I had a really good time. The weather's amazing. People are amazing. Victoria waterfront's amazing to go party at. And the food's good. People are awesome. Going out there in June, you're right in the middle of the tourist season as well. So for a single young buck, it's not a bad place to be. Had a good time. Honestly, though, my gosh, the friggin' rain. And I'm used to the maritime weather. Like, it's not a big deal, but the rain in November.
Yeah.
I recall specifically, we had 44 days in a row that it rained. Not 44 days of rain, but just 44 days where things were just wet and friggin' dreary. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is really sucking.
Yeah. And I think statistically too, there's a higher percentage of people on antidepressants out there too.
I would not doubt that for a moment.
It absolutely.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of people that do live out there currently. And that's like their only complaint, really.
Yeah. I haven't seen the sky in a month and a half. That's harsh.
Oh, it sucks. And we were actually, because of the huge mature forest down there, something I hadn't heard about, or nobody would really even care about anyway. The friggin' slugs Like after
Big
a
ass
rainfall.
banana slugs, man.
Those suckers, the big green things with the black spots on
Oh,
them,
yeah.
falling out of trees on your hair, on your
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
remember hiking out there.
I don't even want to go for a walk today. Like,
Oh,
it's
dude, I was
so
hiking out
gross.
there through the bush, and I thought somebody was following me.
Oh,
It stopped raining, the sun came out. We were going to hike through this trail,
Yeah.
and I'm hiking along, and I hear the thud behind me. The thud. And I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see anything. Because at first I think it's a moose, right? Wait, I'm on Vancouver Island. There's no moose out here. And then thud. And then one fell in the trail right in front of me, this big, 5 inches long. I was just like, what the fuck is this? But there's a few things like that off those, what do they call it? Temperate old growth rainforests, right? It's dinosaur country.
Yeah. I'm getting back. Yeah, I couldn't be there anymore. So I'm like, oh, I'll be honest here. I'm going to say a few things that my mom and dad may listen to. I don't know. But
Hey, Pops.
Yeah, hey, Pops.
This is a safe space, Mike.
I had no place to go, right? So yeah. I'm 19. I'm untrained labor. I doubled down in grade 12. It looks great on a resume. I really had no place to go except back home. I knew I didn't want to be on the island anymore. That was just really bogging me down. And so I called mom and dad, and it became the whole chat. Well, the rules. If you come home, the younger kids, they can't see bad behavior. Blah blah blah. You need to live under our rules. Blah blah blah. So I moved back home under the guise that I'd be a good little Mormon boy and all that kind of stuff. And I quickly, so that would be November, I came back and still had no direction. I'll have to get my work experience figured out as I go on with my story. But in December, basically, I started dating who would end up becoming my first wife. And we had a good time, and she was kind of in the same boat that I'd been in to a much deeper degree. She had been through some real world stuff and dealt with things at a young age. And same thing, moved back home with her parents, decided that she'd be a good little Mormon girl, and she was earnestly trying, actually.
Sure. Just a quick question. Is there a large Mormon community out in that area?
Halifax, Dartmouth actually has several large churches and a temple. Yeah,
oh, okay.
Right there.
I know. I've met a lot of Mormon people. At my cousin's married into a Mormon family. She's got like 6 kids. Amazing family. And then I know that on the West Coast, like out in BC, there's some huge colonies out there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't too aware of what was out east. So
yeah,
interesting.
Actually, so switch back to get my dates all messed up again. Early to mid 70s, they built the first Mormon church in our area. I know a town called Bridgewater, about 10 minutes away from Mahone Bay, where I was raised. And my parents we were one of the original families. Not original, but we're not the OG Mormons, but
some of the
my folks joined early on. They joined.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Joined very early on, so all of their friends are all of the founding families who helped build that church and get the Mormon religion established in Bridgewater. But
okay.
Ex-wife. Okay, so
nothing but easy topics here.
Well, you know what's super cool when you don't really know who you are and you don't have a career path and you don't have income. Super cool thing to do is get married.
Sure.
Yeah, you'll be really good for that person.
Yeah.
For sure.
What could go wrong?
So the following spring, we had moved to from my parents' place. Basically, we had an apartment in Mahone Bay right after we got married. I was working actually for it'd be our AHS. I don't even know what it is anymore. Anyway, I was working in the hospital kitchen.
The version of
in Lunenburg
health services, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a kitchen job working in at the Lunenburg Fishermen's Hospital there, and which, believe it or not, actually had a career path attached to it if you put your whole life into it. And we decided that it wasn't making enough money, and we'd move to the city and see if we could both get more money coming in. A few steps along the way, but basically the gist of it is we moved into the city, which is about an hour away from mom and dad's place, and I was the 300th application for gas jockey.
Wow.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
I'm really lean on jobs.
This is super not cool. And my brother, again, he'd actually moved. Lots have happened in his life as well, but he had moved to Fort St. John and was actually working for Ensign Drilling at the time.
Okay.
And we got talking on the phone, and he told me what he was pulling down a month. I'm like, dude, you got your grade 10 education and you're making $10K a month in 1997?
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? So I caused nothing but strife in my first marriage, of course. And this is kind of a like, I need to get out there. I need to establish things. I need to get things working. And I got to Fort St. John. Within 24 hours, I had 3 jobs. I was pumping gas, ironically. I stayed
No shortage of gas jockey jobs up in the north, right?
Tell you, man. So it's actually the Mohawk on the Alaska Highway right at Fort St. John. You pull in first thing there, walk over. Yeah, we need somebody for the 5 a.m. shift. Cool. I'm your dude. I'm staying at the motel right next door. The second was Radio Shack. And this is all within a day. Radio Shack needed somebody on their sales counter for 6-hour day. I'm like, perfect. I can pump gas. I can pump and close Radio Shack. And then in the same building as Radio Shack is the Pioneer Inn, now the Northern Grand, I think. Or whatever the big hotel is up there. And it had a bar in the back, which quickly became my hangout in the evenings. And man, she was rough. Cowboys and Newfies duking her out nonstop. It was awesome. Well,
it doesn't get much western than the back bar in a Fort St. John hotel.
Anybody east of Manitoba is there to steal a Westerner's job, and that's kind of how it was for quite a while. It became fun, actually. It became kind of a joke after several years. But so my third job was, after helping clean the room a bunch of times, Looney Tunes asked me to work at the door there, so. I kind of had like a full day, like 5 a.m. pumping gas up to 2:30 in the morning, shutting the bar down. And that became the thing. So that would have been September 5th. I landed in Fort St. John. And by December 8th, I got my first real oil patch job with Sandgel.
Okay.
So Sandgel actually paid for me to get my Class 1 license. So finally I had something, no matter where I lived, I had something I can actually make some money with, And
Sandgel was really cooking back then.
Sandgel was hopping, man. Yeah. So I actually made the most money with them in Fox Valley, so just across the border in Saskatchewan. Just shallow wells, man. We were hauling surface cement like every 12 hours, every 18 hours. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Just booming. I don't know how much I want to bore you with stuff. Are we keeping it work related or
whatever you want, man? It's your story. It's however you want to tell it, man.
Well, let's just say
skip the parts you don't want to tell.
Yeah, exactly. This statutes of limitations are unknown at this point. I'm sure I'm going to find out at one point.
I kind of knew, the oil field has a lot to offer a young dude who's not scared of work. But working up to your knees in gumbo, trying to push, a 50,000 pound unit through mud that just doesn't accept vehicles, period, and you're chained up, where chains don't even belong, trying to get through this crap. It's not something the dude wants to do for his whole life.
It gets old.
Oh yeah.
Now, I mean, let's look at what they're doing now. It's rig mats everywhere. I mean, these guys don't know what work is anymore.
No, it's not the same, man.
But,
not the same.
I'm sure you laid in a few trenches, all gross, welding pipe.
Can't begin to recount the tales. It's not something you want to do forever.
But none of these guys don't see that anymore. Yeah. Like it's not what it used to be.
There's no more. Where's Zama City?
Zama who?
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the Pentastar. Make yourself at home.
And the way that people work now for companies has changed too, with regards to number of hours worked, how many days in a row you can work.
Especially for Class 1 drivers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we were running 2 logbooks back. Just kidding.
No, and everybody did. But there's an exception on that, I guess, within 100 clicks, 100 miles of home base. You don't need to run e-logs. So everything
right now, is that the way it is now?
Yeah. So all the stuff south, all that development in the Montney, most of those guys are qualifying to that. They don't got to run e-log. So, but anyway, we digress.
So you can imagine. Okay, so let me think about this now. December 8th, I got my job with Sandgel, and I think by December 15th, I had my wife moved up here, and we had our little slice of heaven renting from a friend that I'd made. So things were cooking right along. I think she was waiting tables, making lots of cash, because man, in the bars in Fort St. John, the girls were just making
the same here.
Tons of money.
Yeah,
same here.
Yeah, and so we had lots of disposable income. Finally, the shift was crazy: 15 on call, 6 days off, which that was new to me. It's not something she or I had ever been exposed to. And if you were on call during that boom time, like you were gone 16 days.
Yeah.
And that caused just a whole bunch of other stresses, compounding on top of the fact that we got married, both of us still trying to figure out who we are individually.
100%. And that was the case, a huge amount of people up here.
I'll tell you what, man, if you don't know who you are, if you only take one message away from this, whoever's listening, if you don't know who you are, 100%, you are no good to another person. Do not bog them down with your shit until you know who that is.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, man.
So anyway, that I put that marriage to bed. So I was not a good.
Just to, yeah. I don't want to dig into that, but also like knowing who you are though, for a lot of us, that doesn't come till later in life either. That's something like a dude in his 30s has some self-reflection, right? Yep. You can look back and go, well, fuck. And then when you're in your 40s, you're like, oh, okay, like I know who I am now. I know who I am better today than I did 5 years ago for sure. So I think, when people get married young, fuck, man, it's a bit of a gamble because they don't know who they are yet. They haven't grown up.
Yeah.
The Mormon way.
Yeah, well, I guess. I don't know. I didn't come up in that. So,
well, so to have that kind of vision, like to be young and to be able to get on the same page, it happens, but it's rare.
Yeah. These Mormon kids, like their job is to turn 19. Sorry, the young men, their job is to turn 19, graduate at 18, turn 19, and go do your 2-year mission. Mm-hmm. And wherever that calling takes you, it could be anywhere on earth. You spend 2 years bringing people into the kingdom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I met a few who had the unfortunate destination of Grande Prairie for their mission. Mm-hmm. I ran into more than a few.
Yeah.
And great kids.
Yeah.
Great kids, but I'm just like, oh man, of all the places you had to land in Grande Prairie for your conversion mission. Like,
it's just a tough sell here.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
But very little life experience in a place as rough.
It's like RCMP at a depot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, welcome to Manning.
Yeah. So and job number 2 after you finish that. Now the young men serve 2 years. And you're not quite shunned if you turn it down. Like if you just say, no, that's not for me, you're not quite shunned, but
there's people talking
differently.
There's people talking about you in the coffee shop.
Yeah. Your faith is questioned and, all of it.
Yeah. Your parents are wondered. Yeah.
That option's there for the young women as well. So at 18, they can also, at 19, they can also go for 18 months. Theirs is shorter. The idea is to get them out there 100% indoctrinated in the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They're getting the doctrine out there through these young minds who have no life experience. And now they're drilling it into them through teaching. And now they come back and the expectation is you're either going to Brigham Young University or you're getting married and having children.
Right.
That's the path.
So Utah is the mecca of Mormonism.
The mecca. Yeah, it's something else, I'll tell you. So and of course, no sex before marriage and all that kind of stuff. So actually some of the, for quite a while when I was younger, one of the big problems that they had was Brigham Young University students going to Vegas for quickie marriages so they could have sex and then quickly divorce or annul without divorce.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So all kinds of dumb stuff comes along with that, but it's all an age-driven thing. You got to capture them young, lock them in young, and that's how it goes. I had a point to this that took me down that path.
I don't know.
Lost her.
That's okay. It'll come back if it's important.
It is.
If you love something, set it free.
If it comes, set it free, bro.
If it comes back, set it on fire.
It's not. It's how can you possibly know exactly who you are?
Yeah.
Right. When you've got this path laid out in front of you, and you're shunned if you deviate. And this is a huge problem with young families because they married young or got hitched up young. In Mormonville, it's friggin' you're married. So let's say you're 19, 20, 21, you get back from your mission, you're married at 22, and now you're busting kids. How does that guy know what he is? How does that young man, I'm going to focus on the men for now, but how does that young man actually know who he is? And how did that young woman ever figure out who she is? And you're saying that we have time to reflect when we're 30 plus, but at what point do we know our values? Our values are who we are, right? Our priorities steer us weekly. Our values dictate who we are and what priorities we choose. So if I'm 48 years old and I'm looking back and I'm still trying to figure out what my values are, I've made some serious mistakes. And I lean back to my first marriage. I didn't know any of it. All I was trying to do was make ends meet, get out from my parents' thumb, and get away from this church that's caused me so much grief. And when that's your focus, man, you don't get a chance to figure out who you are. You don't. And it took me a long time, and I will get into it because it's important. I lost my marriage because she found other comforts while I was gone for my 16 days.
100%. That was so common up here.
Yeah.
I was in the moving industry for about 10 years. And the amount of people that I moved into Grande Prairie in the late 90s, early 2000s, I would move them in as couples. And within 6 months to a year, I'd be moving one of them out.
Yeah.
And it was so common that it was at least once a week, to the point where we had protocol. Show up at the house. Yep. We're moving this, taking this. Hold on a second. Where's the husband? He's in camp. Okay, we're getting out of here.
Let's face it, camp's a good time too.
And she would. And a lot of the time they would tell us straight out, like, I'm leaving so-and-so. Okay, now we got to call the RCMP and get them here, because if we move stuff, now we're accessory to theft. Once this hits the lawyers. Yeah. So we need to have the RCMP here. We actually had a guy one time. We get there in the morning, get the moving truck, start loading shit up. And I don't know, 2 hours later, so maybe about 10 in the morning, big lifted 3/4 ton diesel, some screaming up on the lawn. This dude drove 2 hours from camp. Yeah, right in front. What the fuck's going on? His neighbor phoned him up. Hey, motherfucker, you didn't tell me you were moving. I'm not moving. Well, there's a moving truck in your house moving all your shit.
Oh boy.
So he comes. Yeah, right away we would drop what we're doing, phone the RCMP, wait in the truck. Yeah. Tell us what to do.
I wonder if that comes from having too much, right? Like living in a society where there's so much. Like where like once you're into the work and you're into that atmosphere, you're going to work, but you're going to get a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then and too much. I think it's that I've talked with other people, and it's like it doesn't matter how much booze, drugs, sex, whatever you pour into that empty soul, it's just never enough. And I think because once the valve's all the way open, it's hard to shut it off. And I think when you go from kind of having nothing and not knowing who you are, and then suddenly you can have all of it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just a little, as much as you can take.
Yeah.
And I think that really throws a wrench into some people.
Yeah. Well, who comes up here to work? People without support systems, young people seeking their easy money.
People that need.
Yep. It was a ton of young people who with disposable income, and our population probably just about doubled in the span of 5-10 years with all these young people, and we were meeting them all over the place, coming in here from all over Canada, all over the world in some cases, because they had heard that you could make $100,000 in your first year.
And then the problem is you start making that money, and who are your mentors? Like, you came up here as a young man by yourself, and you look around, and your mentor is 24 years old, driving a $100,000 truck. It's all cocaine, whores, and booze, and you're like, that was the whole culture in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s up here. Everybody was into that, like, just
when you're home,
total
and
party
the rest of the time is work.
Yeah, work hard, play hard, go Alberta, like that whole.
Yeah.
So no wonder so many people made.
And while you're gone, she's in the bar and that's the way it was, man. Because I didn't work. There was a time when I didn't work in the field, and you go to the bar, and it would be 3-to-1 women to men.
Well, and I think part of that too is that there was so much work for the women in those industries, and the money was good. Like you said, she was making cash money. A lot of the women were making tons of cash money, and then now you're in this. Your whole job is you go to the bar and it's full of these. We say rig pigs or fucking welders, whatever, pipeliners. Like, that's the whole clientele. All these guys who just got out of camp and they're all horned up and drunk, and you're like, and that poor woman's working in that industry for. It just doesn't set the scene for greatness.
No, there was
some people, sure, but
there was many a situation where we'd be out for a night in the bar, we'd meet some girls. First thing out of their mouth was, "Who do you work for?"
Yeah.
And I had a buddy of mine who was up here early, and he's like, "This girl just asked me who I work for." You tell her Precision Drilling, damn it.
Yeah. So I mean, a night out in the bar for us, if we wanted to show off, was to put on a big Sandgel parka and our pager on our lapel.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Call.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that was easy. I mean, that it's your advertising, you've got money and you've got time 100%. And blah, blah, blah. But being the sober dude at the door, also, like, you're shaking it off.
Yeah.
You were shaking it off nonstop. Like the lonely women whose men were out working super hard.
Yep.
that's the reciprocal side of that coin, or the other side of that coin, where
100%.
the women are lonely. 16 days with no husband, no support, no nothing. They get lonely.
Yep.
And he's home for 2 days. So it's, and then he's back, he's gone for another 16. So they don't even have time to reconnect when he gets
It's
home.
no lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like it's not a lifestyle. And it took its toll on us. And we, that what went on for 8 months before I found out. And turns out I was the last to know. So on top of all of, a few silver linings, actually a bunch of silver linings, but I was forced to go figure out who I was. But I had to hit rock bottom first. So I didn't realize I didn't know who I was. That's the other problem. You don't know what you don't know. But when I found out what was going on, I immediately walked out. We were renting, and we had $3,000, $2,500 Ford F-150, an old '88 two-wheel drive in Fort St. John F-150. And at that point, I was able to jam everything into a hockey bag. I said, I'm taking the truck. You can have everything else that's in the apartment.
Yep.
We're done. And it was that quick when I found out, because he was actually quite close to me, the dude.
Yep.
And so you only have one heart, but it was like getting ripped out twice. And so I packed up and moved into a couple of different apartments over the next few months. Coked out, drunk every day. Lost my job at Sandgel because I had a case of beer under the driver's seat. And I make no qualms. It's absolutely stupid, and it's reprehensible. And looking back, I know that I'll never be in a position like that again, no matter how hard I get hurt.
Yep.
I know, because I know who I am now, I can deal through that. I can get through that. But what it took was, I was selling enough drugs to pay for my own. I was drunk every night, working the door. I was a liability 100 different ways. And I was actually squirreling drugs and guns in my apartment, which, as far as I know, wasn't being watched. And the guy that I was selling for he's probably had a dozen stashes around Fort St. John like this. So I got in a really bad way one night, and I was going to go kill the dude who did that to me because it was his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I was outside on the street and passed out in my truck, 20 below.
It's a blessing, man.
So I don't know if I ever would have gone through with it, but that was...
But you didn't have to find out.
I was never as deep as I was that night.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, same thing. Packed up my hockey bag, called the dudes, not the dude, but called the guy that I was working for. Mm-hmm. Said, I'm out. I'm leaving town. Don't know when I'll be back. Make sure you get your stuff out of my apartment. I've handed the keys back to the landlord. This all happened within an hour of me waking up. And drove to Calgary and hit and run. H&R Transport, red trucks based out of Lethbridge.
Okay, yeah.
They said, man, you've been up in the mountains driving in the oil patch, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, do you want to go long hauling? Yeah, I'll go long hauling. So
it's a heck of a way to disconnect.
Double down in the logbooks again.
Yeah.
And I spent 7 months, a few things in between, but I spent 7 months basically detoxing myself. I didn't have a drink the whole time, didn't seek out anything else the whole time. 7 months behind the wheel, North American long haul is friggin' interesting, man. I'll tell you what. It's not so cool when you're going east-west, but when you're going north to south and you see the topography and the geography change so abruptly when you're doing, when you're doing 1,200 kilometers a day, it's amazing. But some of the stuff you see on the road at these truck stops before digital tracking, before all this stuff made it hard, you saw more dudes hiding from the law driving trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And freely talking about it.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I've been in the trucking industry or peripheral since I was 17, man. It was a colorful cast of characters, man.
Well, it was also an eye-opener for me because, I'll detract here for a sec, but it's also how they move stuff. How they move stuff is through registered loads. So if you pick up a car-sealed container, the driver's obviously not aware of the occupant or what's inside, and he can't break the seal to check. He has to take that paperwork and pick up. I hauled what turned out to be like $20 million worth of navigational computer equipment to what was then the Pearson Terminal tower upgrade.
Oh, okay.
On the paperwork, it was hanging beef.
Yeah.
No issues at the border. No, none of it. No escort. It
might be a little different post 9/11, but maybe not.
Exactly. But you talk to some of these U.S. guys, and Same thing, car sealed loads, and then suddenly the destination that they're pulling into is a base.
Yeah.
And they had been hauling nuclear components. Like,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
in a commercial freight way. Like, just, it was really cool. I mean, it was a huge eye opener for this dumb little kid from Nova Scotia, right? It was a good time, but it was also, like I said, it was my detox. It was my mental check. It was my, basically just get my shit squared away before I reintroduce myself to the world is what it was.
And you get a lot of time inside your own head.
Yeah, man.
To kind of figure out some things.
Everyone should expose themselves to that.
Yeah.
Because without that time, I don't know how long it would have taken for me to figure out my life, because all I knew is everything I had done to that point. I don't know that I'd trade it for anything because it led me here, but it was the only way I knew how to get cleaned up and get stuff figured out. And it worked. And I think more people need to be at ease with themselves, because I don't think in this world we're attached to all these screens and this instant feedback and these instant gratitudes and platitudes.
Constant stimulation.
Nobody anymore is able to sit by themselves in the quiet and just be okay. Yep. And I mean, I had a diesel under me, but I mean, it was me and my thoughts. Like,
well, you had radio when you had radio.
Well, okay, so
and that was it. But that's the thing. Nowadays, you got access to podcasts and
me and old Art Bell.
100%. Yeah,
Art Bell on AM radio was the only radio show I ever tuned in. Other than that, I was just on my own. Art Bell, the old wingnut.
Yeah. That'll also give you some perspective.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? That might have actually been my trigger point into deeper state topics. You know, like all the back stuff that nobody wants to talk about.
Because he was peeling every onion he could get his hands on, man.
Well, he's the early Alex Jones, man.
Yeah.
Crazy Art Bell.
Alex is back. He's on X now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Things were getting boring there for a second.
Yeah. So you long haul truck. You do that for how long?
Well, I'm a slow learner, so I did that for 7 months, and then I decided, I don't even know what my pivotal point was, because I didn't call home. I didn't check in with anybody because I didn't want any of them. What hurt me almost as much as what had happened was the fact that I was kind of left out to dry. So I didn't have any support from any of my siblings. I didn't have any support from my folks saying, you know, they're there. That shouldn't have happened to you. Like, it was more love the sinner, hate the sin kind of that shit.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to come face to face with what a cruel world it can be.
And just forgive them. If you can, one of the biggest takeaways, one of the biggest values I have is the ability to forgive. Because that's what important. I realized after 7 months. I probably realized it earlier. I just need a little more time. If you can't forgive someone for doing things to you, that's going to actually kill you.
Oh yeah, it's a poison. It's a poison you give yourself.
They don't even know you're dying.
Yeah, exactly.
You may not know you're dying, but if you can't forgive people who hurt you, it will catch up to you, not them.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So the ability to forgive became super important, and I would not have known that unless I'd had that time by myself.
Yep.
So 7 months, had a good check-in with myself, and I decided to call home. My dad picked up the phone, and I realized that I didn't need their sympathy. I didn't need their help. I didn't need any of it anymore. And in that moment, I realized it's just me, and I'm cool with that.
That's strength.
Yeah. And so checked in with home base, said, hey, bring the truck back. I'm done. Where do you want it dropped? That kind of thing, right? So went back to Calgary, grabbed my truck, or my pickup, went up back to Fort St. John, got into some familiar town. Like, I needed money. Long hauling does not pay the bills.
Right.
The only folks making money long hauling own their trucks typically. That's some other, I'll tell you what, I met in 7 months, I bet you 20 retired couples who put their life savings into these dream rigs.
Yeah, man.
Just ungodly sleepers behind the cabs, you know. And
I swamped long haul for like 2 years. It was,
and so all they do is drive around the U.S. And if they need some money, they'll call up a local truck because they're contractors.
Yeah, you need
they'll call up a
cartage
local
haul
company. Yeah, what do you need?
Yeah,
we're in town. We're heading east. We're gonna go east this week. Do you need something hauled? There you go. There's your gas money, your chow money, your next 30 days chill out on a beach somewhere money.
Yeah, exactly. I got an offer one time for a driver up from the U.S. I worked for United Van Lines, and we did cash jobs all the time for guys coming up, and I had run a bunch of crews, and I worked for this one guy, and he's like, man, you really know what you're doing. because he showed up and he's like, I'm going to be in the sleeper. You guys load the truck. And all his other help, they hadn't been around very long. I've been doing it for a little while. And end of the day, peels me off. I can't remember. You know, it was like, I can't remember what the rate was. Like, you'd be lucky to get $200 a day back then, but he gave me like $300-400 US cash.
Yeah.
He's like, you want to roll with me? Cash every day.
Cash every day.
$400 cash every day.
Yeah.
And next stop is like Bakersfield, California. And I'm like,
Fuck yes.
I don't know why I didn't get in that truck and just take off. It was one of those missing moments of life. We just like, what would that have been like, right?
Yeah. I used to haul produce through as part of my, this was the cool part of my run. I typically stop in Brooks, Alberta, and I get a full trailer. So multi-temp trailers are divided lengthways.
Yeah.
So you can have full reefer on one side or freezer on the other side, depending on the product you're hauling. So I'd haul up basically a full load of beef, hanging beef, take that down the East Coast, drop half in Oregon, half in California, load up some produce on one side, on my reefer side.
Okay.
And then juice concentrate in Florida, and then come back up the East Coast.
Oh,
So
wow.
well, here's the shitty thing about this is, or about the business back then was, if you're a Canadian driver, you can come down, empty, grab, and head north, but you can't do interstate loads. You can't.
Right. So no stopping.
Yeah. So basically, you come down, empty my trailer, fill half, and head north again.
Yeah.
Drop it Toronto, Montreal, or whatever, and then head back over to Brooks for another load of beef. It was cool. Bakersfield's it's California. It's going to fall in the ocean one day, but I didn't find Bakersfield all that cool. Oxnard, Salinas. I used to get a lot of like lettuce and stuff like that down there on my reefer side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it was the first time I seen a breakfast burrito the size of my head made out of cactus and rattlesnake.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that, you can only experience that by doing it. Like, there's no way to describe that.
I'll take two.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You gotta get some wheels under you, man.
Yeah. But so you can see the real estate that I was seeing, like, down the West Coast, across, and then back up the East Coast. That's the odd one in between.
Broadening the aperture of a small town guy from Nova Scotia, right?
Yeah.
Well, travel has a habit of doing that, though. Like every
time
time I've ever traveled, whether in the country, down in the States, or overseas, it changes your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's a whole other podcast.
Sure.
Because you only know what they tell you until you see it yourself. But
That's right.
Who's they? So I head back to Fort St. John, got into familiar territory. I need to make some money again. So at the time, Formula Transport was looking for dudes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I went and spent the winter, let me get this right. Spent the spring hauling winch tractors, so moving shacks and all that kind of stuff back and forth all over the place. And then August of '99, I had started working for a really nice old fellow out of Dawson Creek who had a beautiful Peterbilt, $20,000 chrome package on it. It was his baby, but Ron Chapman, he's probably in his mid 70s back in the day, and just couldn't keep the hours anymore. So he and ironically enough, me and a dude who was raised 2 doors down from me our whole lives.
No way.
We were hot bunking back and forth on that truck. So we were hauling butane from mile 121 up the highway in Big Mountain ish, and from 121 and bringing that down to a riser in Dawson Creek. Okay. And typically we could each haul 2 loads per shift. So that truck was making bank. Like, it was doing 4 loads per 24 hours. Yeah. And I was southbound. Mile 77 is a big S corner up there. It's where the $1 million shithouse is. Yeah. Anyway, part of my my front suspension broke right off the frame as I was coming around. I was southbound, so I took the first left corner, and then that's when it starts the road really takes a hard dive down to the big coulee. And just as I started making my right turn to come down the second turn, something snapped right off not my steering column, but my front suspension, affecting my ability to steer. Yeah. And so I overcorrected the steering wheel, and that caused a Super B full of butane to flop on its side. And perfectly clear night, dry pavement, August 11th was actually the date. And that sucker, with me in it, after dropping my girlfriend at the time for her shift at Fort St. John on the way up the highway, so she wasn't in there by an hour. That truck got compressed down to the size of a 1/4-ton truck with me in it. And things were burning around me. And the trailer luckily had pulled out of the kingpin pulled out of the fifth wheel.
Oh shit.
And those trailers with 55,000 liters of lighter fluid just kept bombing and just kept peeling into those. It's all poplar. Like,
it's willows and poplar, whatever. Yeah.
So it just crunched. It took down about 30 feet of forest into the tree line by the time it stopped, and it crushed my whole left side. I managed to find something familiar, which was the grab bar on the heat shield on the muffler stack. I knew what that was. I'm like, okay, I know what that is. That's outside the truck.
Yeah.
And in the dark, all broken up, just pulled myself out and was inching my way back up the embankment. And another truck was heading north, big truck. He locked up the brakes, like, like one of those, right? And he pulled me up and got me into the hospital. But that was the last time I turned a wheel on a truck. So I actually took the next 3 months. I was crushed pretty bad. And went back to mom and dad's and just honestly healed for about 3 months. I was back in Fort St. John.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was pretty much a write-off. Lucky to walk away.
No shit.
Should have died 1,000 different ways. Actually,
well, if you crash 55 cubes of butane and don't become a fucking hot dog,
that's fucking amazing.
So somebody's watching out for you, man.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later too, David. So the truck cooking forward, trailers up here. Mm-hmm. The truck went over the embankment vertically like this.
Yep.
And the kingpin popped out of the fifth wheel. The trailers came across and crushed the truck.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
But the trailers kept on going. So, initially what saved me was the fact that I didn't wear a seatbelt, because the first thing that got crushed was actually the top half of the cab.
There's nothing there,
which would have kept my entire torso up in that crush area.
Yeah.
So I went down to the shifter. As soon as I hit my side,
behind the firewall.
Yeah. Like you could smell the burning metal. I'm grinding, open window. I'm grinding my body on, or the truck body's grinding on the pavement. So you get all that, like that the sparks and burning metal and coming right in. I can still remember it so vividly, but
I bet
the fact that it was not buckled up allowed me to dive down in front of the shifter, and it was actually the dash that kept me protected from the entire truck being crushed. Yeah. So, after that, I came back out. I was doing just some light driving, very light driving. But I had enrolled in the December intake. So this would be December of 99, Northern Lights College. I knew I could make a living driving trucks, but I also knew that I was, and not to demean anybody's career path, I know that I was capable of more.
Oh yeah. And, you know how many clutches I had to grind out of trucks before they stopped trying to teach me? I've been in the trucking industry since I was 17, man. They're like, you're going to get your class 1. I'm like, fuck I am. And I could drive them too. Like, move that truck over there. Can I just have
my air brakes?
Yeah, just hop in, drive. I thought you said you couldn't drive them. No. I said I wouldn't drive them. Didn't say I couldn't.
You know what? There's something to be said. Like, you're commanding a lot of weight and a lot of mass on the highway, and you're in command of a bit. I miss it some days. I really, really do. Like,
it's like being the captain of a ship,
dude. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I met some guys that were damn near artists with those, man. They could back a 53-foot van into an alley in downtown Calgary in rush hour traffic.
Yeah.
I remember doing that get out and stop traffic. I'm like, what do you mean get out and stop traffic? We're like literally in the middle of like Vancouver downtown, rush hour. Just get out and stop traffic while I back into this alleyway to get to the freight elevator.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, okay, here's some guy in fucking shorts and a wife beater out there like, stop. People listening, they'd stop, thank God.
Chicago, of course, the age of the city and everything, and the way a lot of the construction they used back in the day, it's a lot of stone, brick, all that kind of stuff, and a lot of low bridges. And
I bet
you want to throw a wrench at your life for at least a day, take a wrong turn in a 53-foot wagon and find yourself approaching a low bridge.
Yeah.
A low historic bridge.
Yeah. Can't take that out and get away with it.
Dude, no.
Man. Yeah, there's a few stories.
Doesn't matter. They take out the high fucking bridges, some of these guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's lots of cool, there's still, I still have moments where I'd be like, man, I would just like a week on the road, just bombing down on a big truck again. But probably because I tie it all back to that moment where I just needed to be by myself and
clarity.
Yeah. That turned out to be one of the most important periods of my life. So I think I mentally linked the two, but, fast forward, I I'm seeing all these dudes, 20, 22, 24 years old, making bank on these 8 and 6 shifts operating well operating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what's this well operating all about? You guys look like you have, 2 brand new sleds on your truck, but I only see one of you, like $100,000 lifted trucks, and they're making bank, and you actually get to go play for 6 days every 2 weeks. Like, come on. So what's that all about? So I started digging into that, and I think it was only the second year that they actually had a school program being offered for well operating. And this is the only money I ever borrowed in my life. I called my dad up, and keep in mind, I just got off his couch. I said, Dad, I need $1,900. I said, there's a 4-month program that will have a job, I'm pretty sure, waiting for me at the end of it. He said, Mike, you don't got to worry about paying me back. You just get this done. Mm-hmm. And I paid him back with my first paycheck. So I actually had a job with CNRL sitting there. I just had to get my diploma and send it in. Super dude, worked for CNRL. The foreman up there he passed away since. His name is Henry Petrie. They actually named the building after him.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The CNRL office building. Yeah, it's the Petrie building. Stellar dude. Really good mentor, really good coach, but shitty company. Like, honest to God. 30 years ago, CNRL was...
They were a bunch of fucking dirtbags. The way that the business ran, the way they treated
horrific.
people, wasn't super good.
Yeah, so... Again, whole other podcast.
I'm just going to not say anything and let that be my statement.
Yeah. Well, and getting back to, how did I get where I am today? It's because I decided, I made a decision. Like, I needed to do something until I could figure the rest out.
Right.
And so I spent from 99 until 2016 when I found an investor. So what's the math on that? 16 years in production operations.
Yeah.
And I was good. I was really, really good. I was a young prick hotshot for the first while because I caught on to things really, really quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
because that school program was so new, you knew more than dudes had been operating for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? Because you actually knew the internals of things.
Formal education has its place, man. It's
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, especially when it's that technical. Like, you're dealing with pressures, temperatures, flows, blah, blah, blah. My first month of operating, I was doing flow calculations that would make that grade 10 math teacher blush.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, nothing mattered back then. I was, 19, nothing. I had no direction. Nothing I was doing in school mattered because it didn't matter when I was walking out of the house.
No.
The moment it mattered, I excelled. And I think that's a switch that lots of people don't get until they're in the real world.
Yeah. Well,
why'd you spend all those years in school doing that?
The school's not designed to teach you things to be good at them.
You're damn straight.
It's designed to crank out obedient
Absolutely.
drones.
Shift workers.
Right? That's what it's for. It's based on, according to Jordan Peterson, he was talking about how it's based on an old German idea to basically crank out good drones.
Yeah.
And that's how I got kicked out of high school, was because I was out of high school and I had to go through a program to get back into high school. And they had made me write go through a program to get back into high school. And one of the questions was, why is it important for you to be in the designated area at the designated time?
Mm.
And I had
everybody within 1 year of your age.
Yeah, I had a field day with that. So
Just like work.
Yeah, I had it in this great big long diatribe about anti-authority and all this stuff, and just handed it back and never went back. Finished it at home, but
Go fuck yourself.
it's not designed to make you who you're supposed to be.
No,
that's up to you.
No, and you know what, dude, I think I got this big boner for Tim Kennedy now with his Apogee program. You start it's his homeschool program.
No, I'm aware.
He's doing some incredible stuff down there, and I don't know that he's doing it better than anybody else that's got the same idea and the same, let's face it, same backing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the one that's out front right now. Like, he's front and center, and you start looking at the programs that he's got going on. And
I haven't looked too close at it. Actually, I've heard him talk about it quite a bit on several podcasts, but I haven't looked too much at curriculum or anything that's being taught. But I would imagine it's very much like a cross between a military academy and vocational schools. Kind of sounds like what I'm getting from him, right?
Yeah. I think you're spot on. A huge chunk of athletics, it's even here in Alberta, if you took the curriculum for what it is, it's a 90-minute week. So what the hell are these kids doing for, it's a freaking daycare.
That's why, like, when my kids are sick, I'm like, well, who cares? Like, just take a day off. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't matter.
5 minutes.
You stayed home for a couple of years, so they wouldn't let you in the building. And now, like, if you miss some of it, who gives a fuck? It doesn't.
Man. And
really
because of everything that's coming out now, I wonder, do I got to watch myself on?
No. You can't. You can't. If you say that, it won't be on YouTube.
Okay.
You can say.
So if you look at what we know now,
Right.
I wonder if our parents knew what we know now, what decisions would have been different.
I'm not sure it would be, and here's why. I think because I would say what would you call it? Once they're well on their way to breaking the family, right? So I just think that would they have made different decisions? Yeah, if they could afford to. But when the worker bees are like, when both parents have to work in order to succeed, it makes it really hard. You get kind of stuck in that trap where it's like, well, if the wife doesn't have a career and go off and do this thing, then, because between both of you, like, can you buy a house by yourself? Not really, man. Not anymore. Like, and even back then, like when our parents were coming up, there was economic hard times where they both had to kind of work and contribute. And would it have been within their means? I think for some people, yes, but for the bulk of the middle class, probably not, man. So I think it's the easy button. Like I think it can be, how would you put that?
They got to double their workforce, and we got addicted to consumerism.
Right. So they got twice as much taxes. But I think even if your kids go to the program, that's where my kids go. They're in the program, man. But they come home to me. So I think as long as the parents are strong-willed, and I think as long as you're asking, challenging questions to your kids, like, what did you learn today, or where did you get that idea? Then I think there's still hope. I don't think that the whole, by and large, it's shitty. But
if you're willing to be accountable for what your kids are learning, then that's up to you. But I think as a whole, people are less accountable for themselves, or less accountable to themselves. I think it's a rare individual these days, and maybe that's a mold that's being broken a little bit. Maybe due to recent events, there's people are noticing a few weak links in the chain, and they're going, okay, well, wait a second. I kind of just took everything at face value and thought all of these power structures and systems that were out there were there for my benefit. Were there to help me and educate me and keep me safe and keep me alive and keep the world and the country secure. And now people have doubts about those things. But I think that's natural, because if we want to just look at just Western society, previous to governmental power, everything was centered in the church, right? So, which was even more essentially communal, because it was people from the community that got involved in the church, and the church administered social programs, looked after the poor, ran the hospitals. It did all those things, and essentially ended up in the same state. It ended up corrupt. It ended up not doing what it was supposed to do.
That was the whole cry for separation of church and state, because the church was too powerful. Then now it's the state's too powerful and the church is weak. Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the natural end state of all the bureaucratic systems and all power structures, because I don't think they can be moral. I think people can be moral. I think communities can be moral. But the moment we take our hand off the tiller and be like, let the system work, and we think that it's just going to keep working without any of our own input and any of our own work, and we can go, we've made a better world for our kids, and just walk away.
It's just a monster, and you can feed it as many people as you want.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, but hold on. Let's circle back around. So, so you take this program, and then you go till, what did you say, 2016?
Yeah,
as an operator?
March of 2016. So in 2014, so it actually took me 2 years to get a deal put together that Barton's would do.
Okay, hold on. But before we get that far, because I'm trying to nail down when we met. When did you start shooting at Wapiti? Like when did you?
Because I remember when you showed up. Like I remember shooting with you. I think one of the first times you were there.
Let's see, Ben. We moved here when Ben was in second grade, so he would have been 7. He's now 22. 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah. 14 or 15 years I've been here. And that's when I jumped deep into the shooting community.
So where did that come from? Like, where did that desire
Too
come?
much money, oil patch money.
Did you have G.I. Joes when you were a kid?
Yeah, of course.
Did you ever want to be Michael Dudikoff, American Ninja?
Yeah, only every day.
Me too.
So it came from a good, healthy place.
Oh yeah, no, it came from a good, healthy place. You know what, dude? I was spending so much money at the gun stores and just latching on to everything I possibly could at the club here. Earl was already up here a couple times at that point, and I latched on to Earl Green.
Because what I remember of you is, I'm like, who's that fucking tall guy? Because you were at least a foot and a half taller than everybody else. and you would come down to shoot, and I think I was teaching some of those nights down there.
Yeah.
Or not teaching, but at least running it was like a skills and drills, whatever we called it, IDPA night or defensive pistol. And you were pretty fucking fast. And I was like, oh man, here's somebody who's actually a challenge. This dude used to actually come, and we would race on the clock, man. And it was pretty serious, in a good way. But here was a guy who split times in his time out of the holster. I was like, holy shit, where the fuck did he come from?
With those monkey arms.
Yeah, it was interesting. Everyone called him Officer Dave, and I'm like, why the fuck do they call him Officer Dave? Is he a cop? Like, I had no idea.
So there a couple of guys actually thought that I was a cop.
Okay.
Trying to feel things out down there because I was a new face and clean
remember
cut
that.
because I had to be working in oil patch, so it's all clean.
I
Fairly
do
youthful
recall.
looking back in the day, but.
Why are you asking that question, officer? Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's so Officer Dave just kind of stuck. It actually stuck for years.
They thought you were a narc. That happened to me when I first moved to Grande Prairie. Everybody thought I was a narc. Couldn't buy pot for like the first year.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, shitty way to be. I just remember you as the guy I wasn't worried about shooting me in the back on the firing line.
Yeah, I know.
Great. One guy I don't have to keep an eye on out here.
Okay, well that's interesting. Yeah, because I can't remember exactly what year that was when you started shooting down there. I just remember a few key interactions between us then. I think that's kind of when I met you.
Yep. And then that would be shortly after you took over the dojo and you drifted from Wapiti, and then there's a bit of a gap there, but we still met. We had all the 3-gun shoots together.
Yeah, I still ran into
lots
each
of
other here
defensive
and there,
pistol
so,
stuff here and there, and then the rest is history.
Right on.
But so what actually made me want to leave that? My God, I miss the money. Oh, I miss the money so much.
Yeah.
But I got tired of. You're kind of on the same track. So one of my favorite areas that I worked for was Tumbler Ridge. So I used to have the entire OJ main, so from 0 all the way up to kilometer 97.
Right.
And not to bore anybody with a bunch of technical nonsense, but those wells that they drilled back in the day in those mountains are super deep, super high pressure, very prolific formations, and very, very sour. So 27 to 45 MPa shut-in pressures on those wellheads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was nothing to turn on a 1,000-deck well.
Dang, that's why they still run all that down there.
Yeah. So, and some of it was 20% sour at the inlet.
That's pretty fucking sour.
So it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
But what that gave a young, energetic dude a chance to do. So I had a young family, but for the first 10 years of Ben's life, I was working in camp jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What that allowed me to do was not trying to shortcut or try and get home at 4 in the afternoon. Right, just get home and enjoy my 8 and 6.
Yeah,
enjoy my 6 off with my family. Let me focus on operating for 8 straight days. Man, I got good. I could look at a field trend. I could start predicting what was going on with well behaviors and how it was going to affect the inlets at our central facilities. Again, not to bore anybody, but I gravitated towards the higher hazard work. So high H2S concentrations became kind of my jam.
Okay.
Because nobody else wanted it. Number one, there was typically a bump up in pay. And honestly, they're way safer field. People don't shortcut around that stuff. So it actually,
you can't.
You feel
exactly.
way safer. Like there's no, I don't need my mask to change these filters. Like it just didn't happen. So you're actually safer, even though you have a higher.
100%. All your hazards are
higher
identified.
Outcome, exactly.
You're putting up the rainbow of hierarchical controls on everything.
Yeah. So, and not to bore with a whole bunch of detail, but that field had become so derelict, so neglected. When I moved up there, I did it on a shift operating, and the idea was we were going to move from Dawson Creek to Salmon Arm.
Okay.
So my wife was actually her grandmother lives in Salmon Arm, and we just thought, hey, we have this shift. Why not
I know a lot of
take advantage,
I know
right?
a lot of people that do that, live in
2 and 2.
beautiful places in British Columbia and work in Alberta or northeastern BC.
No, thanks, bro. So I got up there and things were going that direction. And I'm like, man, this place is bad. This place needs somebody to take it and fix it. Honestly, the operators were completely run down with overtime.
And that was all CNRL out there?
Problems. No, that was actually BP.
Oh,
yeah, BP Canada. So
who is no longer?
I'm shocked.
Okay, yeah. So So BP. I'll condense a four-year window here. I took that area over when I showed some interest in sticking around and making it better. I got some attention, and then I got some budget, and then I got some plan, and I got some maintenance. We built a camp, like all these things. We took that field within 2.5 years. The team that we built took that production runtime from 67% to 97% sustained.
Fucking
and that's huge. That's a huge thing. Guys are getting sleep at night. Nobody's shortcutting. Nobody's.
The bosses like it. All the numbers are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and now you get the attention of Houston.
Yeah.
So Houston wants to come up and see what turned around this area. So they came up for a week. There was 4 dudes. One of them was actually named Jim Morrison.
Of course. I worked with Bruce Willis quite a bit.
He wouldn't remember. But, oops. Sorry, Bruce, man. I love you. I swear I love you.
That was pretty harsh, man.
Yeah.
It's Christmas time and everything, man.
Snip that out.
No, leave it in.
That's gold. That's gold. He would have laughed.
This is kind of my big eye opener to what I was capable of doing. And this is before the blowout in the Gulf. And Jimmy Morrison looked at me and said, Mike, you shine like a diamond in a goat's asshole. Like, what do I do with that, Jim? I don't know. He said, you ever thought about Houston? And I'm like, I had not, actually, because I'm from Lunenburg.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, got the world by the tail.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in Tumbler Ridge, man.
But it was, it was the first company. They put me through so much incredible management training that it's something you think you know or you think you're good at. You may naturally gravitate toward, but there's things you got to learn, phrases you got to understand. Just things you actually have to go and do before you actually become an expert at it or really freaking good at it from a management level.
Oh, yeah.
And I was pretty horned up. Houston would have been cool. I like their gun laws. This all works for me, blah, blah, blah. And then the Gulf blew out.
Yeah.
The Kevin Costner project. Let's junk shot it.
Yeah, that was rough on a lot of guys.
But that was a huge education for me because they put 4 years into developing me for a big step. And boom, just like that.
Yeah.
Assets sold, personnel sold, stand by, keep your costs down, keep things flowing, and Apache's going to buy you. So it was just another eye opener about, you can put your whole soul into something, but it's only as good as the dude that owns it.
It's circumstance, man. Yeah. Like, who knew, right?
So from there, that took the wind out of my sails, and I just went commissioning. Like I think it was Total Interflex. Hey, whatever. Anyway, one of the mercenary shops here.
Yeah, for sure.
I just went commissioning some other new plants for about 6 months, and just to kind of get a feel for having my hands on equipment again. And that's where I met Sam. He and I were commissioning the same stuff, and then I got a call from who I would have considered a former rival, a friendly rival, Andy Seapuck. So he was with ConocoPhillips, and he knew what my exposure was up in the OJ area with all that deep prolific sour stuff. And he called me up and said, Mike, I just inherited a plant and sour is not my jam. He said, I really need somebody that I know and can trust to come through this thing and tell me what I've inherited. And that became a whole other thing. But that was the last company I worked for.
Which plant was it, can I ask?
No.
Conoco Wembley.
Okay.
Yeah, so about 4.5% commingled sour inlets. Man, that place it was going to happen. It was not if, it was when.
Yep.
And I went through his drawings, I went through his plant, spent about a week just evaluating it for him. I said, Andy, this is not good, man. I said, not one of your operators knows how to start this plant if it goes down. So nobody will hit the button.
Right.
They will accept every condition within this fence line and push through it without shutting it down because nobody here knows how to start this thing up.
Exactly.
And not just that, I identified all kinds of pipeworks problems and control problems and just a lot of easy fixes, but a lot of projects that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And within 2 years, they implemented about $20 million worth of honestly hand sketches.
Yep.
And then I got farmed over to a sweet facility, Elmworth plant.
Oh yeah.
Very boring. At the time it was flowing about half capacity. I think it's at third capacity right now. It's a retirement gig. But just more exposure to bad management decisions nonstop.
Sure.
And I'm like, I will never ever be in control of this. And this is grinding me.
Yeah.
And I'm neck deep in every tactical course I can take. I've done, I've done a Gobi's close protection course. I've done everything damn near that's commercially available.
Sure. At the time. Yeah.
At the time. Yeah. And I realized, man, like I've got to get this figured out because I ain't happy anymore. So I was actually at a precision shooting school. Rob Furlong, who's becoming a friend, was just guinea pigging some of his programs fresh out of EPS.
Right.
And so a small group of us here in Grande Prairie got to go down
and this is about 2015?
2014.
2014, okay.
Yeah, so 2014 we were down at Rocky Mountain House. So they had an 800 meter range, which I think was the best thing available at the time.
Yeah.
And so we went down and did level 1 down there, but I also did level 1 with 2 of the Barton's owners. And for whatever reason, I was shooting on the line and I looked over at Grant Robertson and I said, Grant, I don't know if it's something you'd ever let go of. I said, but if you ever think that you want to sell Barton's, I said, you let me know.
Okay.
I said, I would be very interested in having a look at the books and taking a crack at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't really reply. He said, okay, thanks. We were familiar with each other because I'd spent, I don't know,
quite a bit of money.
It was
classified.
I was contracting. I was contracting then, so I had nothing money.
Your wife's not allowed to know how much money you spent there.
Oh, she found out after the fire.
Yeah.
They're still together, so.
Once the insurance came through, exactly.
This is why I have a truck payment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So it only took about a day, and I actually got a group text from Grant and his brother Ron saying, you know what, you're the kind of dude that we see taking this over, and
because they were getting kind of long in the tooth. They'd been at it for a while.
Late 60s. Yeah, most of them would be mid to late 60s at the time, or early to mid 60s. And I put together kind of a buddy deal. So my close circle of friends at that time, I had approached them all about doing this large, call it micro investment, where everybody buys a chunk, but I'm the one who quits my career and goes and manages it for my chunk.
Just a question though, how long were you considering becoming a business owner? Was that something that you had kind of mulled over time? Like when you said, I want to strike out on my own, I want to run my own business, be my own boss. When did that kind of come into effect? Was Barton's the result of that, or was that just opportunity?
I'd made a good living fixing damaged assets.
Mm-hmm.
My last operating budget, no, pardon me, not my last. My highest operating budget was $23 million.
Right.
And I was in charge of every nickel of it. I allocated every cost. I built the budget for the upcoming years. Like I was in control of that $23 million operating budget. That was the OJ one.
Right.
There's a lot of costs. Working in the mountains with that kind of product renders a huge budget. But I realized I'm running a business.
Somebody else's
businesses don't scare me. I'm already doing this.
Yeah.
But what got me was I'm not in control of any of the management decisions coming down, yet I'm still accountable for everything on the ground level. So it was my job basically to become a bullshit deflector for the dudes I need to do their job every day.
Yep.
And keep all of this nonsense from corporate off their backs.
But that's what a good
Deflect
boss.
it, absorb it.
Yeah, that's what a good boss does. A good management does.
Yeah, but man, that became a full-time job. And then even at the 100%. At the retirement gig at Elmworth plant, just the same decision-making styles. And there was no fix. There was no fix for it.
No.
And I realized that I either need to become a very muted version of myself, and I don't want to do that. At the time, I'm like 40 years old. I'm like, I got 20, 25 good working years left of me, man. If I ain't happy, what's it all for? Like, we've got our little slice of heaven up in the country. We've got our house built, like a mortgage to I'll be working till I'm dead, but I have it. I have what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Why do I need to be miserable driving to work every day? So that is probably what drove me off the shooting line to go talk to Grant that day and just say, you know what? If this is doable, let's friggin' do it, man.
Yeah. So you saw an opportunity and jumped on it, took the chance.
Yeah. Now my original deal didn't work out, but I found a really solid dude down in Peachland, and we spent the better end of a year getting to know each other, going through numbers. I'm certain he checked every inch of my resume.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when your entire resume speaks well of you, and every reference that you gives a good, are you really taking a risk on me, or you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, you've got all that inventory to protect your investment. Like, if I run this thing into the ground in a year, liquidate, get your money back, like, it's actually fairly low risk.
Yeah.
I just don't have that kind of money sitting around. I need an investor.
It's a lot of capital right off the top. Yeah.
Yeah. So once we got through all that, I couldn't walk away quick enough.
I bet.
I really couldn't. And
what was your last day at work like in the oil patch?
Oh, I didn't shave.
I'm going to grow a fucking beard.
I love it. I love it.
Oh man, that was the first thing that went in the garbage was the razors. Yeah. I'm like, never again.
Fucking man.
I get it.
Yeah, 16 years like of being clean shaven for another dude, like whatever. I'm done.
Yeah. We're not dating. Yeah. Fuck off.
Exactly.
Let that be a lesson to all the young men listening to this who are working in the oil patch.
Yeah.
No, I can't. There's a beard in your future if you're willing to take it.
And some of it's so fucking retarded. Like, I remember I was probably early 20s, maybe not even 20. And we're doing a pipeline and kickoff for the whole project. It's going to be on this lease. And the Husky guys are coming out. So everyone's got to be clean shaven.
Corporate. Yeah. And they show up bearded?
No, it's just like,
that was my favorite.
Okay, we're on the lease, and they tell us we have to be clean shaven because, of H2S and this and that and the whole fucking thing. And even at this time, I'm young and I don't know the whole world yet, but I'm like, why in the fuck are we having, if this location is so dangerous, why would we have the meeting here for the kickoff? Wouldn't we have it a couple 100 meters down the line? Like, if this particular location is that fraught with danger that we have to be clean shaven, shouldn't we go somewhere safer? Like, that's how fucking retarded the oil patch is sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But whatever. It's
not built to make sense.
No.
I always say if it was run well and made sense, gas would be a nickel. And we'd all be out of fucking work.
There's a reason I had to do career and life management 3 times. Right? Question everything.
Yeah.
Oh man, my favorite. Like, you sit there and you got 200 dudes at a monthly safety meeting. So ConocoPhillips, for example, used to run the Saskatoon Hall once a month. We go up there and do a morning big safety meeting, and they'd show a safety video from Alaska where they're all like bushmen.
Yeah.
Right. Massive beards and friggin' FR denim instead of coveralls. Can't wear denim on site. Blah blah blah. Like, all of it. Right. It's just a farce. I didn't mean to go on a safety rant because I could do this all day too.
Yeah, you and me both.
Okay. Well, then let's segue in. So you meet with I don't know if you said his name, Steve.
Steve. Yeah.
You say his name, yeah. So you get that hammered out. You guys come to some kind of an agreement, and then how does that move forward? Like, it's you stroke a check and boom, it's yours.
How long was that process taking going for? How long was that process?
For me and Steve to reach a final point where we actually put an offer and then made it happen?
Yeah, from the time you kind of agreed on it to the time you kind of took possession, first day on the job as the new
I probably approached him in July or August of 2015 for a final purchase of March 2016. So 9 months? 8, 9 months probably.
Okay. Wow, same as having a kid. That's weird.
What's that?
It's the same as having a kid. That's weird.
Yeah, ooh. True story. Well, he's an interesting character too because he absolutely he loves what we do. He's kind of he's got a childlike enthusiasm, but the mind of just a steel trap. He's absolutely perfect partner for me to have because all the areas that I'm weak in, he's absolutely dynamite.
He should come up more though.
See that, Steve?
Steve, I think I've met you twice. And each time it feels like a new meeting because you don't come up. He's an interesting dude.
I agree. And you know what? When he comes up, he has a good time. The first time he was up here, we actually went down to, I think it was the Ronald McDonald shoot.
Okay.
So we were at the Wapiti.
Yeah.
And he had a friggin' hoot, man. Like, we were, his son Jordan came up as well. Jordan was deeply involved in the businesses back then. And, we blasted clays all day long. Cynthia and Ben were with us too. It was just a really, really good time.
He should have come up and done our rifle program this summer.
He
would have had a good time.
He
hopefully he saw the videos.
Yeah. He's seen the videos. yeah, he's a busy dude.
I get it.
He's a busy
Generally
dude.
the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a 3-year window there where, travel became very difficult, and he's,
Yep.
I don't want to spill too much about Steve, but he, let's just say he didn't travel.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like that for anybody who ran businesses.
Yeah.
Like, you really just had to rely on your people that you had in place because you couldn't go check on them.
Yeah.
You had to rely on your team to show up for their work from home. You send them a laptop and a monitor and a phone and be like,
Well, I'll tell you what,
show up to work.
When things got tough for businesses during that period, there was no question between he and I how we'd handle certain things if push came to shove.
Mm-hmm.
There's no kowtowing to any of it.
Yeah.
It's nice to have to work with people that are
If they understand your character,
Like-minded.
understand where you're at.
Yeah.
So you stroke a check, you got the business. Now what?
Steve
what does
stroked
that
the
look
check.
like?
Let's just be clear.
Okay, yeah. So
Steve stroked
the check.
Yeah.
That's you on the head. Okay, Mike. See you later.
We picked a transition date, and we had a soft layover where we kept the old owners around for a couple months just to. There's a lot going on.
It's fucking
there's
complex.
lots going on.
Show you where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, we're still finding them.
What the hell is this?
Yeah. Well, let's just say our 8th anniversary is this coming March, and we're still dealing with some things from purchase day, but won't get into any depth on that. But it was a very complex arrangement, and it worked out well in the end. But there's still some hair around a few things.
Well, shit, and more every day, right? You're not getting any help from anybody in your market.
Do you know what?
Right?
I'll tell you what. That's the only thing that challenges me mentally is how long I can hang on to being federally attacked. Like, my livelihood is being federally attacked. Lucas's livelihood is being federally attacked.
It's
nonstop.
It's
every
daily.
day,
Like
for nothing. For nothing.
Yeah, literally for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that's the only thing that brings me grief now. So
it's the high stress part of the business. It's the only, for me anyways, it's the only piece of the business that kind of is like anxiety inducing, where you get up, you look at the headlines and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Really?
And
another 300 pages we got to read.
I don't generally like to keep the podcast as evergreen. I try to keep a lot of the day-to-day and the politics out of it. But as of this date, December 17th, 2023.
Yep.
It was, they just passed Bill C-21 in Canadian Parliament.
Well, it went back to Parliament and then they're on break. So is it in effect?
It needs royal assent and has to go to the Senate. Yeah.
Okay, so it's still.
Yeah.
I mean, it's passed, but it's not quite in effect.
It's run through the parliamentary part of making law, which is yet another step in draconian gun control in Canada, which seems to be.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Again, for no reason.
It's a goose-stepping march towards totalitarianism that happens in this country under every government, let's face it. Some governments just dress it up differently than other governments.
Yep.
But if you're a Canadian gun owner for the last 30 years plus, you have been dealing with your government whittling away at your rights a little at a time.
Right. And we dove into that with Steve, right? When we talked about, he's like, oh, this is the 4th time that I've had all my shit banned.
Yeah.
And it's just that slow creeping death.
Which just kind of makes sense that that's the one that YouTube decided to kick off, because it's just, I'm like, what'd you do, Steve? What the? So.
Oh yeah, YouTube pulled that. So that podcast with Steve was not on YouTube.
Because it went into the gun world?
I don't think it was the gun stuff. We talked about.
We used forbidden words.
Oh.
Yeah, we used words that you can't use.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. X is likely the biggest option. So Spotify has very limited censorship, and X has none.
Yeah.
So the new year.
No, hold on. X does have some,
that's
because I got banned off X for 12 hours. So I replied to a tweet from Trudeau, and I was like, "Hey man, like,
I don't remember what I said.
Do the right thing. Go hang yourself. Go bang a bunch of dudes. Whatever." And then I got this notification that you can't say that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got banned for 12 hours, and then as soon as they let me back on, I was like, well, maybe I can just retweet it, and then it doesn't count the same as posting. And I got banned for another 12 hours.
Yeah.
So you can't tell Trudeau to go hang himself.
No, you can't tell anyone to do that. That's the same thing I did. Was I made a mock post about medically assisted.
Right. And here's
suicide?
the fucking thing though. So that goon can get up there and tell people, oh, we have help for you. Like, we have this medically assisted intervention for dying. And if you're feeling bad, we'll just kill you. And it's like, but you can't. So he can get up and say that from a government platform. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, clap. Yeah, another social program. But some dude like me can't tell him, like, like Benny said, go drink a bucket of fucking bleach. You can't tell him to do that because that's bad.
That got Trump kicked off of Twitter too.
Yeah, it's just stupid. Fucking, I love you, Benny.
There's all kinds of censorship. There's always going to be censorship. Yeah. We're just going to have to find avenues to have the conversations that we're going to have and continue to put it out there. That's why Jocko started his own media company when things started to get locked down and people started to get kicked off of various platforms. So he's got a bunch of podcasts that run under his media company. So if the hammer ever came down, everybody got banned, he'd still be able to run his stuff. I think that's just the way it's got to be, right?
I think media is pretty safe for now. Like X for sure. At least there's a place to go.
Yep.
I think that'll be in good hands for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with everything Elon Musk says or does, but you can't deny that the man is on Team Human and that he's pro free speech.
Sure. Not sure he is human, but he's on Team Human.
Right. He's on Team Human. And he is pro free speech, so you can at least he provides a venue for people to say what's on their mind.
Oh, exactly, and there's always going to be a market for that to some degree, right? Like the cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, the internet exists. Yeah. You're only going to be able to limit it so far. When there was radio, people were pirating radio signal. When there was just over-air television, people were hacking onto over-air television. Yeah. Like there's always going to be someone out there who's going to try and get a message out. And I'm not trying to do anything world changing, but it's the challenge is interesting. I like the challenge.
Yeah. So back to the Barton's thing, when you decided to, I don't remember if it was somebody else that told me this, that it was like a discussion with your wife, Cynthia. And it was something about if you like guns so much, why don't you just buy the fucking store? Is there any truth to that, or is that kind of an offhanded? Do you recall something
folklore
like that? That might be a real abbreviated version of the story. It's just somebody told me that quite a few years ago, and I was like, "What? Fucking!" It kind of makes sense, but
yeah. So we, it may have happened.
Okay.
Don't try to get in trouble enough.
After the first deal kind of fell apart, we actually had approached the business development bank, and they liked everything. Everything looked really good. And then literally like 13 hours before we were supposed to sign, they backed out. Oh, okay. And, so screw them. They're supposed to be operating independent of any political agendas, but
I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah. Bullshit.
Sort of like the banks with truckers.
It kind of became a thing that she knew I was working on passively in the background, but I just got to the point where it was exhausting probably hearing me talking about it. And so I just stopped. Yeah. And, I'm sure that got said more than a few times in my house, but like I said, this took me from the time I decided I was going to make this happen. It took 2 years to get it signed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But once a dude's mind's made up, you should be the dude who follows through with what your mind made up.
Yeah.
So how did you find the transition from being like I don't know what you would call it, almost like a purchasing manager? You're in charge of all this money and you're kind of playing the deflection thing, and now you're the figurehead of the company. Now everybody's working for Mike. Was that a hard transition, or was it kind of like wasn't too bad because you were used to having people work for you and running crews and stuff like that, or was it because you went from the oil patch, which is a little bit more structured and there's some tickets and some certifications like a program, and now you're in retail, which is kind of like a free for all? At least that's what I found when I came on board for retail. I was like, what the fuck?
Here's the thing. Weird. So what I got to see was I traveled with those dudes down to our buy group in Texas.
Yeah.
And so I did a few road trips with them to try and get a feel for the flow, meet some of the reps, see what companies are available to us for purchasing. What I'm looking for is grabs at efficiency. Because there's we got a 25-year generation gap between those dudes and me.
Yeah.
Right.
I come from a very technical background where I'm literally reading trends for a living, trying to predict things that are going to occur in $500 million process facilities. Spreadsheets and such, whatever. It's second nature to me. The first buying trip I went on with these guys, they've each got an accordion file with 400 or 500 sheets of paper in it, with handwritten notes Oh yeah, dude, like rulers and pencils, striking out lines, deciding which line they're going to purchase from which distributor, or do we divvy up this one line between 3 distributors?
Right.
Just like, and honest to God, I watched them work for about 8 hours down there. It would have taken me with my laptop 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say I'm
joke.
a big fan of the fucking tablets that we have when we go to a show, and you're like, everything's right there.
Yeah.
I can
and that's what it should be.
and I can access the shop in real time. I'm like, do I need that? I can't remember, but hold on. The program knows. No, I have 200. I'm good. Like,
The robot
when your
tells
job
me.
is leveraging technology to make things safer and more efficient.
And that's what it was. And, you know, and Steve is also a very technically sound person. He's very good with computers, understands databases. You know, way back in the day, he got started building databases.
Okay.
So, you know, when I explained to him that just the raw efficiency grab, you know, that's hours saved. And yeah, there's 3 owners doing it, but those owners are taking good money from the business. If I can do that myself in a fraction of the time, and I don't need to pay anybody else in the structure to do that, that's a huge cost saving. Now, we've got a really good machine now. It took about 5 years to get it where it is right now. 4 years. There's a few things that had to happen like right away. Simple things like cloud-based servers and such, where you've got immediately recoverable drives or files. And the web store was a huge opportunity for us because they never got it figured out. They could barely even figure out Facebook, how to put posts on Facebook. They were actually getting one of their sons-in-law to look after Facebook for them in his own time. So
which is fair, right?
I mean, the web store was a raw opportunity for us. And then
of course.
literally just getting things into a digital world. Accordion files, man. Like I actually walked 20 feet behind them because I didn't want to be associated with them at these trade shows.
Yeah.
It was that bad.
Well, large inventory online real-time sales at the time was really tough. Yeah. But then along comes Amazon and creates the biggest distribution network in the world for retail sales. And all of a sudden, boom, there's your template. Yeah. Now, any company looking to do online retail who isn't following that template is just kind of making problems for themselves. Yeah. And every company that existed before, say, 10 years ago is trying to catch up, is trying to get on that. How do I get my product one click away from my customer? Yeah. That's just it.
Huge loss though with Amazon. Screw Amazon. Just saying.
Yeah. No. For any small business owner,
I'll buy diapers on Amazon, but I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Amazon and what it's created potentially is the death of independent business. Now,
for sure,
what we deal with, we got to be pretty friggin' technically sound in order to offer advice for what we're selling. Yep. If you want to spend a $10,000, or dump $10,000 on a precision platform, for example, we best be able to have an intelligent conversation with the folks on the other end of that purchase. Yeah. You don't get that with anybody else. I can name, and you can too, a dozen online vendors out there just in Canada who will sell you whatever you want at a toilet price. Yeah. But there's no warranty support. There's no technical support, and there's sure as hell no expertise behind the any questions for that purchase. Yeah, and that's what Amazon's hurting. You can see it also in restaurants right now because of what happened with our 3-year nightmare. You can sit in any restaurant now and watch more skip the dishes turnover at the front door than tables turning in the restaurants.
100%.
And how many restaurants have closed here?
Quite a few.
Well, and now
there's more on the way. I had an interesting discussion with a guy the other day
with the dude,
who owns a restaurant in town. And he's like, these guys are gone. Yeah. And there's 4 more that probably won't make it. And you're like, holy fuck. But
and they're all being replaced by these franchises. Which are just
it's even
frozen food, heated.
It's part of it too is programming as far as, and I don't mean programming like there's a sinister thing at play, but when you look at, I'll give you an example of how people's patterns change. So if you look at our downtown core in Grande Prairie, Alberta, because that's where the fuck we are, and they basically shut the downtown core
for a couple of years.
They shut it down for a couple of years to do all these upgrades and developments. And you had all these pretty trendy, cool businesses down there. And it was kind of a fun place to go and take a walk and hit a bunch of shops and hang out. But what happens is you shut that down for 2 years. And as a consumer, let's say you're used to going to a certain couple stores on Saturday, you go downtown, and now you don't get to do that for 2 years. So you find a couple other stores in town and you build rapport there. They get to know you because you're a regular customer and now you're comfortable there. And it's like, well, now, hey, guess what? The downtown's open again. Well, who gives a fuck? Like everybody has gone on to other things. They never did anything to help the businesses there, and they've never done anything to drive business back there. They've just made it more difficult. So, but there's an example of how people's patterns can change innocently enough. And it's the same thing with the Amazon and Skip the Dishes. Is the easier it is, and especially coming through the last few years where nobody was allowed to go anywhere anyway, well, then your patterns change. So now instead of driving down to the store, you just click a button and it comes to you. And look at the technology. Like you look at the apps and the web stores and everything online, it's gotten really good actually. There's so many, it's so intuitive. It's so easy. Yeah. So it's hard to, it would be hard to walk that back now. Don't know how. Now a shop like ours, which is kind of a pro shop.
The nature of our goods.
Specialization.
Sure. And this is where working in a controlled industry where, let's face it, you can't just buy that on Amazon. So there is a little bit of benefit to working in a regulated industry where people kind of come to us and trust that the expertise is there. But
well, there's specialization that fixes that. I mean, there's going to be a lot of cookie cutter businesses in general, but if you say there's cookie cutter mechanic shops pop up all over the place. You don't care who's working there, but you're still paying the mechanic. You find a mechanic who knows your vehicle, works in your vehicle, gives you a fair price. You don't care whose name is above the door. You want to go to that mechanic. I want to go to Joe or Dave or whoever, right? Same thing with restaurants, right? You want good Mexican food. If you could
stay home and make it.
Well, if you can go to if you can go to a Mexican restaurant run by Mexicans, cooking authentic food the old-fashioned way. The same with Vietnamese food. The same with anything. It's specialization. Why do you go there and do that? Why do you buy your, Kraken rifle from Barton's? Because those are the guys who know Kraken rifles, right? Those are the guys who know the platform. They're out there shooting. They're out there training with them. They know their capabilities. They know their limitations. And that specialization and quite honestly, it's community building. Because when we're building those communities, say it's the old fucking West, right? You're going to get a blacksmith or a couple of them. You're going to get somebody who knows how to fucking mill wheat. You're going to get somebody who knows how to do this. Yeah. It's a group of specialization that creates a community, and that's how you counteract what you're talking about, this flood of mediocrity that comes with the globalization, that comes with this cookie cutter growth that we're seeing now, where everything's kind of the same, and nothing's really that great, right? The products aren't that great. They don't last. The food's not that great. Mm-hmm. The people kind of suck too.
People also forget how to cook. A lot of this is like teaching us or trying to drive us away from natural foods, natural remedies.
We can't really, here's what we can't really go down the big pharma rabbit hole because that kind of, I think that was part of the last discussion.
We may have made a left turn at Albuquerque there. I don't know, but
maybe that's what got us banned. I don't know, but,
I think we're on this huge voyage. I mean, in mass, we're on this huge voyage right now, or this huge trip of self-discovery, and it's happening through guys like Gary Brecka. It's happening through, unintentionally through Joe Rogan. It's happening.
Sure.
Can I say Bobby Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah, sure.
Look at all of his research. Yeah. The dude is not challengeable. He's absolutely not challengeable.
A lot of
I'm not
going
to go into it, but he is blowing the lid off things that affected my family in the 70s that we are completely oblivious to until now, where we're learning.
And it's interesting to go back, to watch what guys like him say, go back and connect it, put all the dots together, like, well, shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's how we got here. Mm. Yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of at a spot, I don't know if humanities is chronic adolescence, but I think we're at a spot where we're past the inflection point with technology. It's going to go forward. Yeah. What we're trying to decide on as a species, I think especially in the West, because we're a little maybe further down the road than some other parts of the world, that what are we going to give up to go forward, to embrace this new future that's coming? And there's no way of stopping it now.
Unpack that. What are you talking about?
So technology is going to go one way.
Yeah.
Right? Elon Musk is single-handedly doing the job of the entire world's space agencies at one point, right? He's proving that one guy can do it.
Well, one guy can lead it.
Exactly.
His fucking team's amazing.
But where it took whole nations before.
Yes.
Right? So where we're going with technology is somewhere we've never been. Humanity is approaching a point in its existence where it's going to look like something totally different than it did before. But what we're trying to figure out is, do we keep all the lessons we learned getting there? Or do we shit can a whole bunch of it and institute some, rather draconian measures to eliminate what we see as problems?
It depends who's in charge
forward.
of the technology. The fucking problems, it seems to be pointed at the people. Like you look at, all this new technology, and there's, we're going to control, like, I don't want to, again, 15-minute cities and all this other stuff.
Exactly.
Like you're inflicting technology on the people. A surveillance state.
It's the same question you're talking about, where you're working for an organization. So as a person on planet Earth, you're part of an organization. And
can you imagine if they turned all that energy outwards? We'd already fucking have cities on Mars.
Sure. But I mean, we didn't really choose who leads the planet, right? As people, we didn't get a chance to pick those people. There's people that lead the planet and they make decisions, and we're all kind of on a ride for it. Whether or not, I think we still have a chance as a species to make decisions on how we're going to keep it. Like, are we going to keep certain traditional values? Are we going to keep certain things that make sense for us? Because these things didn't pop up overnight. These were lessons learned over millennia about how to have a community and how to have a family and how to build a city and how to build a country, how to have a nation and how to work with other nations. These weren't things we just cooked up over nothing because they sounded good. They were literally bred through wars and diseases and famines. Like, the planet's been trying to kill us as long as humanity's been around, but we're not killing each other. And somehow we're still around. And there's always been people that, thought they were going to rule the world. You've had your Genghis Khans and your Caesars and your megalomaniacs before. It never works out for them because the world isn't a linear thing. You don't just get in the front of it and run the whole thing. It's a growing, dynamic lattice work of things that are always happening. But I think where we're at right now, just with technology, is we're going to go forward into something else. Be it, AI, be it the human augmentation, with essentially cybernetics.
Implants,
like we're on a precipice now, and I don't think it's stoppable. I think it's part of where we're going. But do we go there taking all the lessons of what was good from all of our societies and run that forward, or do we just kibosh history, rewrite history, create a dull, bland, gray socialist future? Everyone is assigned their whatever.
I think we're always stuck in that vicious loop. I think it's the dragon eating its tail. I think we go through cycles where it really fucking sucks, and there's other times where it's really good. I don't think it becomes this gray, endless misery of like, what do you call it? Where you're stuck in between the planes.
Purgatory?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I don't think Earth is purgatory as far as like some people might have that view, but I think I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think sometimes I think it swings back and forth. We talked about it before. Like, we're at the extreme edge of liberalism in the world but liberalism eventually runs smack dab into conservatism. Like, if you look at the economies, you can only print so much money. You can only lie and cheat and steal so much, and eventually you just run out of capital. And it runs into this wall of conservatism. And I don't mean like conservative people like with pitchforks, but I mean, at some point, like, somebody has to be in charge again. And it's like, and we have to rebuild this. It's fucking wreckage. It can't continue on or we'll die. So you have to put good managers in place that are going to like rebuild. So then you start ending up with, look at Italy, look at Argentina, look at the Netherlands, all these places where they went so far to the left. Mm-hmm. And now they're like, whoa, they're drastically swinging back to the right. So I think there's always going to be that cycle of
which has its good and it has its good and its bad.
Sure. Because it's only good if it goes in your favor, right? Like it's always 50-50. Like half the people will always think it's shitty. Doesn't matter what side it's going. 50% will be like, this fucking sucks. And you're like, well, okay.
Yeah, my team lost.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.
That's a lot to chew on. You guys just there's
the odd rabbit hole that happens during conversations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I'm a textbook introvert, so I like to watch, listen, and absorb and come up with an intelligent answer. I can't just jump on some things, but a lot just happened here, and man, I don't even know where to start. So, you say we're still here. We are here again.
Sure.
You guys watching? He's actually a journalist turned archaeologist, and it's Graham something or other.
Hancock.
Yeah,
no, I'm not watching it.
Been on Rogan a bunch.
I'm
okay.
More than familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's basically.
I'm not, so I'll check it out.
He's identified an undeniable processionary cycle, is what he calls it, which is the recurring ice age of the planet.
Sure.
So it's the society ender, and you can take it or you can toss it. Doesn't matter because you're going to die anyway. But what he's identified is that history as it's written, because you'd asked a question about whether or not we're going to take forward all of the good things that we have behind us,
right,
and make sure that they get amalgamated or incorporated into what's ahead of us. But when we're not in control of history and history itself today, based on what Graham Hancock and many others are uncovering, how the hell do you know what to take forward? Because everything we know is basically wrong. Like all there's,
I think you're right, because history has been rewritten by the victors. Do we know the purpose behind the pyramids? Do we know why Göbekli Tepe was buried? Do we know why most of these old societies, when did they exist? One of my favorite things in the whole world is civilized prehistory. That story exists everywhere, right? So it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. There is a belief that we're here now and there was people here before.
Yeah.
And something happened and they're not here now, but we're here now.
Yeah.
So what I mean is when we're seeing a change in values in Western society, so moving away from things like personal accountability, moving away from things like the family, moving away from things like
accountability in general.
But this has happened historically before, and I think that you asked, like, do we bring the good things forward? Fuck yeah, like that's why we're here now. Because if we didn't, if through the ages we hadn't brought it forward, we wouldn't be here having this discussion.
Right, and can we? But the thing that I think is, this isn't a. When we discovered new places before, it was physically we had to go there.
Yeah.
Right. I think what's going to happen with technology is we're discovering things about the universe. First of all, that we don't know what the universe is, and we don't really know what our place in it is. There's things like simulation theory. There's things that happening at the quantum level. We're looking at quantum constants across the universe, and we can't really compute it fast enough in our brains. But once we get AI thinking for us and thinking with us, like, I don't believe that a human being can travel the stars, so to speak. We're not smart enough to do all those equations in our head. But once we get our technology to that level, and I think that's part of...
Once we create the machines that can do it.
Right. It's like we couldn't discover the new world till we built the boat, right? Till we could read the stars. Turns out other people had done it before us, you were saying, right? Doesn't mean that it's the first time it's been done, but I just think that where we're at in a society today, you're seeing a lot of values change, and you're seeing a lot of things that people worry about them getting lost. Mm-hmm. And you see people, I guess in a sense, what they're doing is building arcs. So guys like Tim Kennedy, we're building schools, right? What they're doing is they're protecting what they believe valuable.
Yes.
And it's the thing is it's messed up because it's intangible. It's not like you're trying to save your gold, right? Or your property. What you're trying to save is knowledge and value and community, and trying to keep that going, keep it alive, because we've seen it die in other places. We've seen what happens when power structures move into communities and just decimate them for economic reasons, right? Why? We've done it. We've been part and parcel to it happen. And now it's happening to everyone all over the world all at the same time. So what do you do? But
do you want to? I know what to do. That's the.
It's happening to us all. It is happening to us all over the world, but I don't believe. When was the last time you saw anything about what's going on in France broadcast?
Only on X, but I watch.
Yeah, sure, I do keep a lot of independent journalism. Yeah,
but a year ago we didn't have X in its form.
Sure.
So
I'm a person who always tracks down. I've always tracked down local reporters from around the world. I don't know that I have turned on like a mainstream news thing, like a CNN or an MSN or a CBC in like at least 5 years, maybe longer.
Yeah. I think part of it too, though, and I can't remember if we've discussed this before. We probably have, but I think part of it is that we also have access to way more fucking information at any given minute than we ever had before. So, despite the fact that it might seem like, oh, it's all doom and gloom and there's so much, fucked up in the world. It's because we have these fucking things.
Programming
like,
us. Exactly.
If I took you to the trap line for a week where there's no cell service, eventually the ringing in your head stops. Yeah. And you don't care about the rest of the world. You're like, well, we need water. So you get a bucket, you go to the fucking lake and you get water.
Right.
I'm hungry. Well, you're going to go fish or shoot something. This is where your food's going to come from. And in the winter, you're going to drill a hole and you're going to sit there all day until you got enough walleye to feed everybody. And that's you don't care about the rest of the world anymore.
But I think that's an interesting thing that's happening where people are
so
identifying that as valuable.
Right. And you look
trying to save that.
Guys people like Tim Kennedy who are starting his own school and he's got
young people
sheepdog program.
Buying rural property.
Sure, man.
Whereas 20 years ago, there was a mass exodus from the country into the cities as people were reaching retirement age. The kids didn't want to take over farms. They were selling out to these mass corporations and going into retirement homes. And
now people can't get out of those fucking ghettos fast enough.
They're coming to rural places and trying to buy these properties and start small farms and grow. And I think that's interesting because I don't think these people are technophobic, and I don't think they're afraid of progress. I think what they're seeing is the world is going to continue its uninterrupted march of time as we evolve in one way, shape, or form. But this is important. My family is important. Where my food comes from is important. My community is important. And those kind of things are being identified and kept. But that's what I mean. Like I think we have a choice, and I think that there are people in the world who, if they could, they would make everything flat and gray. They would make everybody a drone set towards, one education system, one,
national childcare, national dental, national everything.
Well, we hear that, right?
Well, and fucking Melee said, actually he said something pretty cool. I watched one of his interviews and he says, when needs become rights, your country's fucked. You're well down the path to socialism and communism, right? And I think that's kind of where it's frustrating. Is you look at in Canada, needs are becoming rights. Just because you need it doesn't mean it should be free, and I should have to pay for it. Go work for it. Get it yourself, bitch. Like that's how it should be, right? That's capitalism. Elon Musk is proof that capitalism works. Here's one man at the top of a company launching shit into space because of capitalism, right? He's like the extreme opposite of it, but you look at what's going on in Canada and you're like, well, fuck. Yeah, it seems pretty depressing.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the human race, right? Yep. One person, one dude could kind of drag the whole thing ahead. That one person. And that's where
it only takes one.
Yeah. That flat kind of extra medium world where everybody's the same, where we get rid of the meritocracy. Everybody's assigned, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. They do it all over Europe in their education system. You're passing these tests or these scores, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. School's going to be free, but if you decide to think on your own and go be an artist, well, now you owe us all that money back. And you'll be ostracized in your community because you didn't follow, you thought outside the box. These things work to a degree, but not not for humanity. Humanity, we're built on this fantastic thing where we have free will and the reaching for greatness, right? Where somebody looks at the situation they're in, like you were saying, you were working in a plant, you felt it in your soul. It was a soul-crushing job.
Yeah.
And you thought, there's got to be a back door out of here. There's got to be a way out. How can I do it? There's got to be some way to live, saying living your dream is pretty nebulous, could mean anything to anyone, but there's got to be something more where I see my family when I want to see my family, where I do something that has some meaning to me, and you found it out. And that's why I read the piece at the beginning of this whole thing, high flyers and deep divers, right? People who reach that extra little bit, people who have hit rock bottom, people who felt what it's like to have nothing and still say, and they don't, say, oh, the world victimized me. I was a victim of my circumstance. They said, well, that really fucking sucked. I better learn from that because I'm not doing that shit again. And taking another step and taking another step and taking another step. And every day getting somewhere to where, well, I mean,
I can't relate to a victim's mindset. So
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, but you're in a low percentile though. Like when you hit that moment of self-reflection where you're like, okay, everything in FSJ is blown up. This fucking sucks. I need to change my life. I need to, and you became a long haul driver and took accountability for your own actions. You had this deep thing inside you that was like, man, I got to get this shit figured out. And then even later when you called home, it wasn't to be like, hey, I need help. It was like, hey, I'm just checking in and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with who I am. But I would say that's more uncommon now. I don't know what it would be percentage wise, but that's not what's taught in the system right now.
So let's hop back then. So earlier on, I get into the whole early marriage, that whole path that I was supposed to have taken, the path that was laid out in front of me. Yeah. Had that all happened, had I taken that path, I would have had kids involved in that bad relationship.
Yeah.
How many people do you know in that situation?
There's a lot.
And would I have made the same decisions? Could I have packed my hockey bag and left?
Yeah.
Probably not. It wouldn't have been that easy.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I was able to walk away at a young age, at the young age that I was, and be able to figure out my own shit out without damaging any more people.
You hadn't damaged yourself, right?
Yeah, had we had kids, it would have been probably would have been the guy to stick around and try and make it work. And then where would I be? Right. Where would she be? Where would those kids be?
Well, and even
nothing
yourself,
would ever be right.
Like you're fortunate in the way that the lifestyle you were living, it's got a pretty short duration.
It does.
Ends in only 2 places.
Yeah.
And you didn't end up in either of them, which is an amazing thing, right? You didn't fuck yourself up so badly in that you seriously damaged yourself down the road.
You're right. My spiral was hard and it was fast.
Yeah.
And fortunately, like the time that happened to you, there wasn't like a government program to get you more drugs for free and then offer to kill you and then offer to help you die later. Like, so that wasn't in place. So that like you were fortunate to come through that when you did, because I think the people that face the same circumstances that you're talking about right now, those people have it even worse because they don't have this, you came through it with no support network. And now there's people coming through, or they're not coming through because the support network is, here's some free drugs. Here's how to take them safely. Here's a lifestyle that, is federally and provincially funded. And when it gets to be too much, we'll just kill you. It's no big deal.
And sell your organs for $250,000.
Thank fuck that those weren't the programs available, for some of us at our age coming through some certain things. It was like, we didn't have that the government wasn't there to help us. Thank fuck.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said for, I don't say pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Everybody needs help in some way. Some people need a little, some people need a lot, but I don't think anyone, like, no man is an island, right? Nobody really succeeds on their own. They're always standing on the back of someone else who's helped them out in some way, shape, or form. Even if that was the person who fucked them over, who stabbed them in the back, who screwed them. They learn that lesson. We're able to take that and be, oh, fuck, I won't do that again because last time I did that, trusted this person, did this kind of shit, I got fucked around. I'm going to take a different tact. And that's obviously what you did. So you own Barton's. What was it at the time? What was the name of it at the time? It was Barton's. It wasn't Barton's Big Country.
It was just, God help me. So the actual legal name is Big Country Outdoor Superstore, Inc.
Okay.
Which we carried,
Yeah.
but coined Barton's Big Country.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was always just Barton's with the old boys. But
Yeah.
we needed to refresh it a bit and just give it a little more. So Barton's Big Country is what we coined. But I don't use the legal name ever unless I'm like doing a credit app with a vendor or something like that. It just doesn't come to light. It's horrible.
No, that's pretty wordy.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
What it's known as. So to kind of jump back to, holy fuck.
We're kind of all over the place, man.
To get back to
That's okay.
Barton's then.
The time is free.
So you take control of the business in 2016. Is that right? 2016?
Yep, March 2016.
So now we're at what, 7 years in?
We'll be 8 years on March.
8 years
This
in
coming
March. So
yeah.
Okay.
any big what would you call it? Waypoints that you want to talk about, like through that kind of like, coming into the business and learning the entire business and to where it's at now. Is there any massive things or small things that you want to talk about?
Honestly, we are rare. You know the numbers we turn. We are only there because of the people driving the machine. And if you know anybody that works over there, lots of folks know the whole crew. Back in 2020, everybody did Rob Furlong's level 1 course. Everybody on payroll. I'm like, you know what? If we want to be the best, we need to be able to answer the questions, and it doesn't matter who picks up the phone. They need to be able to talk intelligently. And you know what? It's also a nice little bonus. Go off for a few days on company dime. Go learn how to shoot stuff at 1,000 meters away from the best in Canada.
Yep.
So we did that. Everybody is 1 kilometer certified on staff. And that was cool. It was just a friggin' good year, man. Like,
and Notch's best boss, like pretty fucking high up there.
Actually, so it was
came with a price tag.
It was the best. It was the best team building exercise that I'd ever been sent on with a company. Like normally when you get sent for training and you get sent to like, maybe it's a leadership course or a management thing. And
Dale Carnegie's next for you, bro.
You're sitting
so somebody like
in
me,
a boardroom somewhere, role playing. Jim doesn't want to come to work next Thursday.
And somebody like me, I'm like, okay, like I go through the motions and I get the certificate at the end. But to get sent to a shooting course for work, I was like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, of course I'm in. This is wicked. Like, it's not. There's no other. It's the only industry where that'll happen. Like,
Dear Diary, winning.
To answer your question though, Dave, like one of the biggest things in the last 8 years, and I knew it from dealing with oil and gas assets as well. That it's any amount of work that you can't assemble a crew to take on falls on you. And if you can't deliver it, you won't deliver it, and everyone's going to know that you couldn't deliver it. So you best figure that out right away. And one of the best management things, I'll lean back to BP. They invested a lot in their field level management. That's where I learned I was actually an introvert, and it's okay. It's okay because introverts think. Yeah, introverts take time to answer, and typically they can build a more solid path.
And fucking working with introverts, it drives you nuts if you're not an introvert. You're like,
just ask my wife. She asked me any question, and I'm just silent. She's, did you fucking hear me? And I'm like, I'm processing. Like it takes me time to hear your question, think about it, and give you the answer. Because I could just give an answer.
Why the fuck is he thinking about this for so long?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So so learning that about myself was actually a huge thing because I thought I was deficient. And until I got that figured out and realized, holy crap, actually my manager, John Hawkins at the time with BP, fantastic dude. He has some big stuff on his resume. He is actually the exact personality type as me. And I'd go to hell for that guy. Yeah. So I'm like, hang on now. I can actually embrace this and I can actually build something using this. The other thing too is it's okay to not be able to train somebody. So it's not a failure as an individual to not be able to train somebody to learn something. Mm-hmm. It's okay to recognize that you've put in the effort required to say you've tried.
Yep.
And if that person's not receptive or you haven't been able to reach them on a level that they receive information, it's not your failure.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Something else ties right into that one. One of the biggest wastes that corporates will put into people is trying to train them where they're naturally weak. The best teams out there, and I encourage you to think about this because it's true. The most effective teams out there don't rely on an org chart. They are people positioned where they're naturally strong,
Right.
supplemented by people who are strong where they're not.
100%. That's the whole concept of a team.
That's how the machine, every cog can touch and actually affect the next cog.
Yeah.
You need all of those synergies to exist to get a team like we have at Barton's.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a lot of type A's and we clash and we hate on each other. You know, there's a new victim of hatred.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Every family's like that too.
Forgiveness, man. That's a big part of it, man.
I can't teach forgiveness, but I can tell you forgiveness changed my life.
But you can explain that, hey, look, yesterday doesn't have to fuck up today.
Exactly right.
Well, and I think we have a pretty good team there where, there's conflict and people are like, hey, fuck, like they get whatever, but then they let it go quick, man, because it's the nature of the business
people.
too, right?
Yeah, one of the biggest leadership lessons that I've recently learned is that a lot of people are going to accomplish the same task in a different way or the same task set. So I'll be watching various people working in the same task set and I'll get a little bent out of shape because I think like, they're not doing this or they're not doing this and they're not doing this. But when I step back and I take the 10,000 foot view, I'm like, no, they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. They're actually excelling over here. They need a little more support over here, but they're nailing everything that needs to get done. And they're actually putting the effort in to get it done. They're just doing it a different way than this guy is, and a different way than that guy is. So this person needs a little support here. This person needs a little support here. This person needs a little support here. But essentially everything that needs to get done is getting done. Yeah. Just because it doesn't get done the way that I think it should get done is my problem.
So, I mean, you've known Ricky for years. Ricky's worked the gun counter for us for, 8 years in March, but he worked part-time quite a bit for the old owners, and everyone knows Ricky.
Yep.
You think I'll ever get Ricky to run a computer?
Probably
no,
not.
But I'll watch him twice today sell you your own underpants.
Fucking A.
You know what I mean? Ricky does what Ricky does. Yeah. And that guy is strong as hell where he is positioned in the team.
Yeah.
Somebody else will go pull, analytic reports out of,
sure.
And we'll interpret that later. Ricky will handwrite orders for me. No problem whatsoever. Because I just watched him sell you your underpants twice today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Everybody has a strength and everybody, I don't try and push them. I don't think I try and push any.
Did I tell you how I ended up working for him?
Oh no.
I think you explained it on the original episode, but it bears repeating actually.
Okay, so Mike takes over the leadership of Barton's. It's Mike bought Barton's and whatever. And I think at the time I just jumped into being a mailman. I'd blown up the oil patch and was going through some life changes. I was pretty fucked up for a while. But I'd go down to Barton's, hang out because I didn't really like it before. Like I'd go in there and I just didn't like the vibe. It was a cool place or whatever. Some of the people were good, but I just didn't like it. And then when Mike took it over, I'd go down there and hang out and bullshit. And I'd bring him a coffee once in a while. We'd chat because we had known each other through shooting, right? So we kind of had
same way all
bit
of us met.
Bit of rapport there. And so I go in there one day. He's like, "Hey man, what are you doing this Saturday?" And I'm thinking to myself, we're going to bro up. We're going to get some beers. Maybe we're going to have a fire. We're going to hang out. Mm-hmm. So I look at him like, man, I got absolutely fuck all planned. What's on your mind? And he's like, well, I kind of need you to work for me. And I'm like, what? And I can't back out of it now because I left it complete. I told him I had absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean work for you? He's like, well, I got nobody to work. I'm like, well, who's all going to be here? He's like, just me and you and a cashier. And I'm like, well, fuck, I guess. Like, I never leave my friends hanging, man. If somebody, and I think everyone knows that, like, if somebody asks me for something, man. I'm like, okay, fuck, I'll be there. So that's kind of how it started.
That's how I roped you into doing this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I go in there that Saturday, and it was busy for the time. Yeah. It was busy, and I'm like, what the hell? So we hit it off. We worked pretty well together. It was a good kind of whatever. And then it was like, hey, so-and-so's got days off coming up because it was in the summer. There's a lot of summer holidays, so I ended up coming in and covering a bunch of holiday shifts. And then it was like, well, hey, you can just work whenever. And I was like, okay. So I was working casually, and I was kind of back to oil patch hours because I'd go be a mailman in the morning. I'd crush it out, and I'd be into Barton's by 11, and I'd work till close. So I was like back to working 2 jobs and running a dojo, so like juggling a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's how I ended up there. He's like, hey, what are you doing Saturday? I'm like, fuck, cool. We're going to hang out and just be dudes.
I'm not going to lie. Mike has this really, really, really unique and refined ability to manage assets.
Oh my!
I always think it's funny because it's like it's well, not fun. Yeah, no, it's funny.
I think we're having fun. I think we're still having fun for the most part.
Yeah, I think so.
And it seems like that atmosphere. A lot of gun stores have that stuffy know-it-allism when you go in there. Doesn't matter who you are. You feel like you're kind of less of a person talking to anybody behind the counter.
I think our customers
doesn't have that.
Or you're getting bullshitted completely. Like I actually entertain myself some days when I'm feeling down. I'll go stand at a competitor's gun counter. And you know what? All the competition in town is friendly. Like we all get along pretty good, but holy shit. If you go to the big box place, the stories that they will sling to you and the misinformation, the bad information.
Everyone I've ever been to, man.
Well, they're just trying to tell you
whatever
they think you need to hear to put the product in your hands. Whereas for me, like I routinely tell
don't even
people.
Think so. I think they're just trying to look cool.
I think so, but
because they know they're not selling me anything. I'm not like I'll stand there and they're trying to tell me about some super scuba sniper recce story that I'm just like, what? Where did this come from? Like,
I'll tell people not to buy something. Somebody's like, well, I'm trying to get my first rifle. I'm like, what's your budget? They're like, oh, like $600. I'm like, you should come back in about 8 months. Like, why don't you just keep putting some money away? Like, don't buy a starter gun that you're going to hate. Like, what's the gun that you want? Well, I want one of those. I'm like, well, just come back later and get that one. I don't need your money today.
Yeah.
Make a good choice, be happy, come back. And, but we have good customers too. Like we have a really good, solid customer base of good dudes that come in and they kind of get us and get the vibe of the shop. So I think it's, I don't know.
No, I'm liking what I'm seeing, where it's going. Without divulging any top secret information, like when you first took it over, what were your first kind of goals? Like what were the first things you assessed as this needs to change, and how has your vision for the business changed?
I'm lucky enough that I was exposed to that shop. More importantly, the staff at the time of purchase. I knew where some of the holes were. I knew some of the immediate corrective action. I knew, again, like the data efficiency, like just getting into some sales reporting and actually seeing what's what and not relying on this friggin' accordion file that got left behind. I'll tell you what, fun fact. I don't know if you ever saw the back room, but when we bought the shop, there's that back hallway that goes to the old office. Yeah. And we bought the company truck also off of Grant with the purchase. So we had something to haul all the way into the trade shows. It's a long box dually. Yeah. I filled that sucker with a canopy on it with paperwork and hauled that off for shredding. And you can't tell I put a dent in what was laying loosely in that back room. Wow. They had partial containers of ammunition sitting on top of a gas-fired hot water heater. I mean, this is so
the fact it didn't burn to the ground years ago is pretty miraculous.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's this is an important thing for anybody who's in charge of anything important. The minute something sits still for a day, it becomes furniture. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It becomes part of the environment. And the more it gets walked past, the more it doesn't exist. 100%. And it just became that thing. So, some good people came along with the shop back in the day, but there was a little file that you might see on your desk at work kind of thing where, you put the few things you got to look at later, this, that, and the other thing. On the front counter of that store, I found one of those little file racks and it had some loose papers in it. And I'm like, I got to purge. So I'm going through things page by page. I found credit card receipts that belonged to Jack Barton from like 2009 in this little folder that's just always been there. I'm like, this is what we inherited with that shop.
We could probably shred
honestly, when it came to identifying opportunities, I mean, just purging and getting efficiency built in was the easy part, but there was obviously some staffing things that needed to be addressed as well. But it didn't take long to make some very immediate corrective actions. Some things reared their heads right away. And then from there, it was recognizing I couldn't do it all myself, and the only way to get it done was to build a machine.
Right.
Yeah. So
you need a team.
yeah, and you know what? It's this team that allowed me the room to actually step out for a minute and build the back alley range. Right. That's not something I could have done in the first 4 years of this business, because I just didn't have the available time and space mentally or on the calendar to take on something like that without having this team doing what they're doing now.
Right.
Well, and I think, yeah, from obviously I will have my own opinion on, but I think you've built a team that doesn't require you to be there. So if Mike's gone for 2 weeks or
Which
3
was the goal.
weeks,
That was the goal.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't matter.
Make yourself
like
obsolete.
If you're gone and I'm gone, Ricky's there. If Ricky's gone and you're gone, I'm there. Like and everybody else. Like, it's not there. There's enough people that understand how to run the business day to day.
Right.
That no one of us has to be there.
It's because you all built it.
It's
everybody there on the roster has a key function within the business.
Yeah.
The business flow. And we don't have any fluff staff. Like, literally everybody there has very key positions that need to be there to keep the machine rolling. Yeah, you can take a day off. We can get through.
Yeah.
But my first eye opener of what these guys were actually capable of, thank God, was when I needed to take a full month off and get my head fixed.
Yeah.
I couldn't look at a screen. I obviously couldn't hold a phone to my head. Like, I couldn't do any of that stuff. And I was completely blind to what was going on, aside from, the odd check-in remotely through our cloud-based server, which gave us the room to do it. But that, to me, I mean, it also identified more opportunities as well to, do a little bit of repositioning and retasking. But these guys carried the torch in my absence for a better end of a month before I could even get to emails, really.
Right.
And, yeah, that was a huge learning curve for me. I don't need to do it all myself. I don't need to, I can shed some trust and let these guys carry the torch. And it's been a really good ride.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's next? Like, what's the...
Can't tell you, Dave.
It's all top secret. Yeah.
There's irons in the fire.
Well, obviously you've built the Barton's back alley range. You guys are doing training. Was that always part of the goal? Did you have a hankering where, because obviously you facilitated Earl Green coming up here to do some certifications. We all took some range instructor and pistol instructor courses from him. When did that become a thing? When did you start seeing that as a possibility? Like, hey, I could both A, start a range, and B, start offering training.
The training part, I think, happened pretty organically. I don't want to take the words out of his mouth, but I think what happened is we were talking about, hey, cool, we're going to have a range. And then we thought about the things we could do there. And we're like, we're going to have a holster program. Because we're both, that's the background we come from. And then it's like, what does that program look like? And when do we do it? And it's like, and then what's after that? So I think for me anyways, it kind of happened organically, and then we kind of...
Yeah, but we fell back on, we got well over 30 years of combined expertise. And when I was initially in my own head still talking about the range to myself, it only made sense to do it with the school, because honestly, show me somebody else doing it. Like, locally, if you want to take a Saturday and peel out and do, an advanced carbine course.
I know they got down in Red Deer, they did something a little bit similar.
Exactly, Red Deer.
Yeah.
And there's a huge appetite for training in the area. And I think, we'd had a few discussions. It's kind of like, well, yeah, we should have an in-house training program. It just makes sense because there's a demand and nobody's filling it.
Oh, 100%. I've always seen this area, the Peace Country, northwestern Alberta, northeastern BC. When I think the big one for me was the late Paul Gomez when he was coming up here, and he was supposed to do that training. And he didn't make it, passed away en route. Unfortunately, God rest his soul. But the people that were at that training course, the diversity of people from walks of life, from various professional backgrounds, that really opened my eyes. Like, these guys were willing to drive, some of them from Vancouver, Saskatoon. We're talking, 12-hour drives to get to some nowhere in the middle of northern Alberta, to get their blast on and hang out with like-minded individuals and learn something from some experts that, quite honestly, that didn't have access to in country a lot. That's changed a little bit. There's a little more homegrown expertise in Canada, or access to a little bit more. Post GWAT, there's a few more guys out there looking to share their viewpoints and share their skills, which is cool. But at that time, I kind of looked at it. I was like, wow, these guys are willing to come up here, and they were all excited to come up here. Mm-hmm. They're excited to come. This is the best place to come and train.
That whole crew, wow. Gomez, and then of course, it's like from Tactical Response, because I'm sure that's where we met him and trained with him. Before he kind of did his own thing. But those guys used to love coming up here. Like, they were fucking flabbergasted by how safe they felt, how hospitable it was. Like, they just...
The Canadians owned firearms.
Yeah, you guys actually have guns? And how come the sun doesn't fucking go down? You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I always thought, like, this area should be a mecca for the shooting sports, it already is for hunting.
So I'll put this in perspective for you with some numbers, because today is the 17th. We kicked open the doors at Back Alley Range on December 15th last year. So we're 367 days in.
Yep.
We've got, I'd have to pull the actual numbers, but we surpassed 200 intakes back in September.
Oh, wow. So that's membership sold?
No. That's courses sold.
Courses.
Wow.
Yeah, because in that post,
Okay.
that post, I was like, thanks to the hundreds of, and I was like, I better check that. I think we might be just shy by a few, but like, I have a spreadsheet because I'm a fucking nerd too.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm learning to use Excel. They didn't teach us that in welding school. But I keep a spreadsheet where I
no kidding.
I put everybody in there.
Yeah. So honestly, between all our programs, we surpassed 200
in your first year
by September. So 9 months.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then we crushed it with the weather. We actually assembled a few more courses and brought Earl up.
Yeah.
Late season, post September.
Yeah.
So it's
well,
here.
he's another one. Like, he's a guy from Ontario. Like, when he was on here, he was telling us, like, he came up here, to do some training, kind of like, who am I going to train and where am I going to do it? Expecting like a bunch of gap-toothed hillbillies,
Which is what he got, but he loved us.
Well, like he was saying, like, when he showed up to the initial night, because I remember when he was in town and he went to the dynamic shooting or whatever was going on at the time at the Wapiti Club, he saw one thing. But when he showed up to the course the next day, it was an entirely different group of people.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, these are the people who know what they're doing, who've taken training before, who are more in line with what he was seeing. And now he's been back up,
10 times.
How many times now?
Quite a few.
And when the instructors like who they're teaching or like what they're doing, like everybody I know that comes up here to teach goes, definitely coming back.
Everybody that's ever come up here to teach has come back more than once. So that says something about the training community up here.
Yeah.
What we're kind of, maybe not I am personally wrestling with, so with this C-21 and the ramifications of yet another big round of shit getting banned, like, we built this program, non-restricted carbine. So, your non-restricted rifles, we have a place we can go. We can teach you how to run these things. And then I'm working on an indoor pistol caliber carbine course, and then the C-21, and you look at all the shit that's supposed to be banned, and you're like,
yeah,
are we going to be teaching fighting coach gun where we're shooting 2 R2s? Like, I don't know what the future of training looks like in the region as far as, like, just because legally how hampered we'll be.
It'll be interesting to see what the Alberta government does. There's some, I don't know. I think this thing's pretty early in its infancy as to where we're gonna see hitting the ground. But
it'll be interesting to see, like, because of course on Instagram, everyone's like, well, or in private chats and everything, everyone's like,
scout rifles.
Oh, well, the Alberta government's not going to enforce it. It's like, yeah, but federally it still fucks us. It's like, as a business, you can't sell it. As a training company, you can't market it. You're not going to market a class where you're telling people to bring federally prohibited things to your class. Like,
yeah, exactly. So as long as you can't put that shit on Instagram, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it leaves a lot of questions. As like, okay, like, all the success that we had in the last year as a training company, and then looking forward, it's like, well, how do we keep that momentum going? Because it's a good time. I would fucking rather do nothing else. I love being on the field.
Yeah,
I love teaching. I love being behind the line. I love being on the line. I love being on the shot clock. Yeah. I like all the shit talking and the pressure that comes with it. Perfect shots on demand under pressure. I fucking love it.
Fucking
And
man.
I'm thinking like, I guess like, here's my kick in the ass to put together that fucking pump shotgun course again. Like it's,
Yeah.
because what else? Like, it's interesting.
Well, I had a back and forth with Braxton McCoy on X a while back, because somebody mentioned something about scout rifles, and he's like, in the day of the AR-15, what the fuck use is a scout rifle? And I explained to him, like, maybe not to you. You're living in Idaho, you know, you have access to whatever you need. If you're looking at personal defense, if you're looking at skill building, if you're looking at, you have access to whatever tools you need, whatever you want. Move into a more prohibitive environment. What are you left with? How are you going to accomplish the same task with what you're left with? That's where the scout rifle comes in.
Yeah, and
he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
You always say things differently than I do. It's the same fucking
He
words,
also called me a fucking leaf, so.
Yeah, because I told him, I was like, well, the communists banned all of our gas guns, so we're left with scout rifles. And he's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it's like, that's what you have, so that's what you use.
100%. But I mean, I don't think that's an end to
here's what I don't want
education.
To do. I don't want to be teaching fucking lever guns in pistol calibers indoors if I can help it. But if I have to, you know that I will.
And I'll be right fucking there, because that sounds pretty damn fun to me.
Is that what we're doing now?
I think what it's going to be is if we ever need to teach that program, it's out of necessity, not necessarily choice.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it'd still be a fun one to do just for shits and giggles, but it would be a short course.
Sure. It's just that I learned on semi-autos, and it's easier for me to teach you how to run a semi-auto gun.
Yep.
Instead of, well, here's how we're going to run a 38 special in a lever gun. Like, yeah, as much fun as it is, it's horribly inefficient compared to a bolt gun, or a gas gun. It's not.
Yeah, it just becomes that, you know, the why, right? Asking yourself, why are we doing this? You know, if you're going to be teaching something, what's the purpose? What skills are you given? What are you giving to those people? What do they need that you can fill the gap on? You know, fill their afternoon. They're going to pay their fee. Yeah. They're going to walk away saying, I learned something valuable and beneficial enough to tell the next person, yeah, go and do this because this is worthwhile. Just like any other business, right?
Well, and I think luckily for us, we saw that because we had a couple hundred people come through our program.
Yeah,
and all
absolutely, man. That's
generally
great.
Speaking by word of mouth, because on social media, we're only on Instagram for the range, but that's suppressed. It doesn't come up in anybody else's feed if you're not subscribed to us, because it's all guns. And there's been a couple times where it's like, the channel is suppressed, and I get the message like, if you delete this post, then, you know, the restrictions come off your account. And I'm like looking at the post, and I'm like, yeah, but that's every single post on our page. Yeah. Every one of them is going to be something about, like, it's gun related. That's the industry we're in. Yeah. So it's kind of, thankfully for us, organically through word of mouth and through reputation, guys came and trained with us, and it worked out pretty good. So
yeah, well, I would highly recommend it. If anybody is in the market for firearms training, I've always thought about this because, you know, gun control. If you're living in Canada and you're a gun owner, and I've always been a firearms advocate, an advocate for firearms ownership. Mm-hmm. The only form of gun control that should exist is education. It should be mandatory. Not that everybody has a gun or that everybody learns about it, but if you want to, or if you're in a situation where you're going to be exposed to it. So basic safety for children, maybe that should be mandatory. But if you want to own one, you should probably have to take a course with guys like you.
Which is, well,
because that just makes everybody safer.
I think from a cultural perspective, you could
you
fix
should also have to take a med course.
Yeah. But culturally, I think you could fix a lot of the bullshit misconceptions. Whereas, like, if you wanted to have a say on guns, then be a PAL holder. Like, go through the program, understand what it is to have the privilege from the crown, and then you can have your voice when it comes to policy. You can't just my feelings, and then you get to make policy on it.
It's like politicians dictating health policy. They have no place. They have no place to
and they're like 350 pounds and never saw a cheeseburger they didn't like, and they're telling me no, you can't do this with your health, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Careful, boys.
How fucking backwards is this shit?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. You got to call him out when you see him. Like,
you're absolutely
there's
correct.
just, it's like having a minister of transportation who's never driven a fucking car. Right?
Oh man, the name's going to escape me, but that gal from Newfoundland who used to hunt bear with a 22 gauge, something like that.
Oh, they come out. Yeah.
And she was a little touched.
Yeah.
But those folks have no right whatsoever to speak on this matter. I'm going to take a step back for it. So in Alberta, the chat is lack of enforcement on the federal legislation, which cool. My concern about Alberta gun legislation or gun control is that it all hinges on the back of Chief Bryant. So Terry Bryant has pushed this for the last 3 years in places that I don't think any of us expected, and is actually gaining traction and a really good foothold on the legalities of what the provinces are allowed to do and potentially take back. My concern is if Chief Bryant retires tomorrow, who carries that torch to the same
unless
same
there's
degree that Terry did, like
a successor.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we're there with a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
We're there with a lot of industries and people. Like if the person in charge
Smith
quits tomorrow, who's mentored under them?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what they're doing? Who understands the mission? Like really what's going for it? Because right now we're dealing with outliers.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with people like yourself or people like Daniel Smith or people like Elon Musk, these outliers who are willing to stand out on their own in the cold and go, I'm going to do this.
I think sometimes, you just like, it's easy for me to say, if I was running the province, there would just be an Alberta Firearms Act. And we'd be like, fuck the Fed. They haven't done us any favors yet. Like, why wouldn't you just,
words.
Why wouldn't you just take back control of this piece of contentious legislation and make it right for your people? And maybe the solution in Alberta isn't the same one for Toronto. I get it.
Facts.
That is what it is. But the provinces need to kind of step up and take back a little bit more of the authority that they've allowed to, it's crumbled and they've just given it away over the years. And I think Smith is pretty good at some people hate her, some people love her.
She's earned a lot of her own criticisms.
100%.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Oh, you crossed the floor and let everyone.
But you don't.
You left that party. You hung them out to dry. Like, you could go down the rabbit hole.
There's no outliers who please everybody. That's the thing. That's why they're outliers.
But I think Smith is also somebody who has learned from previous mistakes, and I think that she was also politically, she had to find herself. I think she's found herself now. I think she's doing a pretty good job.
I don't know.
I'm not saying
we should ask her. Daniel Smith, did you come on my podcast?
Yeah, we're available all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the province could do more. I think the province could take back that whole portion of it.
Sure.
And I think they could come up with something that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't understand
without having to feed the ideology.
Federal, provincial, they've become so blurred over the decades.
What we don't have to do is keep feeding the ideology monster.
No,
you'll never fill it.
No, but what you can do is educate.
Yeah,
I mean, I think you guys are doing a bang up job of that, taking away a lot of the stigma of the stuffy know-it-allism in gun stores. You made that a lot more friendly, a lot more accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah,
probably a lot of people you guys don't want in your store, but it's retail. I think there's one term that defines retail the best: hell. I believe that's how it's been explained to me by most people that work. But I sold sporting goods for like a year and a half in Canadian Tire when I was young and in college. I sold like everything from bicycles to boats.
I don't think.
It's like that.
Culturally, though, I think that's kind of the benefit you get of having a family business. Mm-hmm. Is your customers kind of become part of the culture, and so you don't. I mean, we get the odd shitty customer, but it's not like, bro, I was at Best Buy this morning. So let me just back up a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. And this guy, he's standing in line. He's arguing with he wants to return this box. He's like, I like the product, but the box, like, what if I was a collector and I like the sound, but he's off on this fucking tangent. Like, if he was in our store, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, cause I could do that there, but at Best Buy, right?
Yes.
But the only reason I'm at Best Buy, yesterday, the boy, he's like, Dad, I want to buy myself the Xbox Series X for Christmas.
Wow.
And I have the money. And I'm like, are you sure you want to do that with your money? And he's like,
Okay.
well, yeah, I want to invest in that because otherwise I'll just spend my money on junk food at the gas station. And I'm like,
Smart
I'm like,
kid.
fuck, okay. And I'm like, he's got me there. I don't really have a rebuttal.
Although he needs to
like,
learn to invest.
Well, yeah, but whatever. He chose some key words. And then I ask him, I'm like, what are you going to do with your old Xbox? He's like, well, obviously I'm going to keep it because if I've learned anything from your past mistakes is that I should keep this. And I'm like, fuck, like it was a spear. I'm like, because here we are playing like retro SNES and whatever. And I'm like, I'm lamenting, getting rid of my Nintendo 64 with 200 games back in the day. So yeah, he comes at me with that. He's like, well, obviously I've learned from your mistakes. And I was like, fuck. So there I am last night fucking buying this thing online because he doesn't have a credit card, right? And,
of course.
But he wants to pay cash. He wants to get it, to the boy from the boy present. So there's me this morning at fucking Best Buy picking this thing up.
And he also learned from his dad to buy your own fucking Christmas presents.
Yeah, like if you don't want to be disappointed, get your own. But I can't remember how we got to the whole Best Buy or shitty customers. But yeah, so there I am standing in line, and there's this shitty customer gets passed from one lady who like couldn't quite deal with it. It had to go to the manager because this guy's upset about the most retarded shit ever.
Yeah.
And we are pretty fucking lucky. Like, I don't know. Like I would have told the guy, hey, look, man, like too fucking bad.
Right.
Like I felt bad for the manager that had to deal with this guy because he was still going on. And this is after like 15 more people came through, had their things settled, and this guy was just being difficult. He bought the product he wanted. He bought it online. The product was fine, but he wasn't happy with the packaging. In case he's like, what if I was a collector? And I'm like, where in the fuck do these people get this license to exist in society?
Yeah, it's
like
the public.
I get it. I thank God I don't work at Best Buy.
Retail, man. And working for a big box store where you don't have any say. I remember when I worked at Canadian Tire, and I found out that we were able to discount items to like previous sale prices and stuff like that. I just needed a manager's authority. So I'd be, doing my thing. And so I'd be like, hey, I want to buy this basketball hoop for my kid. It's like $300. But, can you give me a deal? I'm like, hold on. Last sale price was like $199. I'd be like, call down the manager. Like, come sign this ticket. I'm giving this guy a deal. And I did it to everybody.
Yeah.
Really?
Everybody. Because you could just discount to the last sale price. You can haggle in Canadian Tire.
Noted.
You can do that shit. There was a dude, he used to come in every fucking day, at least 4 times a week, and look at boat motors and fishing stuff. And he was this old Spanish dude. And he'd want to dicker on the price of every fucking thing he bought.
Oh, we got some of them.
And you know what? I was just like, yeah, I will give you whatever discount you want. Like, whatever I can do, I'll do it. If it's within my tiny bit of power, I will do it for you. And nobody else wanted. He's like, oh, that's the dude. He's in here all the time. He's a real pain in the ass.
I'm going to go hide out in hardware, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd just be like, go there and BS with him about fishing lures and this and that. And wouldn't be damned if 15 years later, that dude was my father-in-law.
Oh, dang. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. First time I met him, I'm like, hey, I remember you. You're the guy at Canadian Tire who wanted to dicker on prices on fishing lures. And I was like, yeah, give the guy 15 cents off. Who cares? It's a fishing lure.
We could do an entire episode on character archetypes at the gun counter.
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, we're going to have to tie in with a bottle of whiskey and... Yeah, definitely.
Be very careful not to name drop any of them.
For sure. No. I would have to make a list beforehand. I remember years ago, like being on forums like Glock Talk. Remember when people used to communicate in forums? And there was like lists published of like gun store archetypes. Yeah. And they were funny, man. And they probably still hold up today.
AR15.com. Yeah, it was full of them, man. Full of them. Well, we've been at her for 2.5, almost 3 hours. That's pretty good, man. Mike? Anything you left out of your story that you want to touch on?
Well.
Is there any one burning thing when you were coming in here like, I'm going to remember to say this?
No, man.
We'll do this again
I
sometime.
thought about, because of my personality type, I thought about sitting down and listing a bunch of things I wanted to be sure to talk about, but I kind of like the way that this steered already on its own. So, man, it's tough to... even scratching 3 hours here, it's tough to scratch on the important stuff. Like there's just so much when you really, if you want an unscripted conversation, like there's just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know how to go back to where this conversation started, quite frankly.
It seems to
You
be
started it when you left New Brunswick, apparently.
It's a theme here.
What?
Yeah. And you know, that's why these things keep going. That's why they got a little bit of legs, because we can always circle back on this sometime. And
you know what? Actually, there's another thing that it's super important, especially if you want to climb out of whatever hole you feel like you're in and you need help, or you're scared to ask a question. Like, lots of people wouldn't be comfortable going and asking a dude for the kind of money that I asked for, out of the blue, or running a difficult oil and gas asset, not falling into the existing toilet of wrongdoings in that problematic asset, and knowing that you can go talk to a boss, or knowing you can approach anybody in that org chart, and they're just dudes with mortgages, kids, like debt, all of it. They're just dudes. Lots of people get strung up. My point being, lots of people get strung up on social hierarchies, and don't think that we have some wealthy customers come in, but you wouldn't know they're wealthy, and they just want to sit and bullshit like human beings at the counter. Don't be scared to talk to people because of a title they hold or an office that they work in or any of that stuff, because
100%.
if there's something that you want, go for it, man. Like, I walked away from pretty damn good living and I don't have that living anymore, but I'm smiling on my way to work. Nothing blows up at 2 a.m. I'm not digging a buddy's face out of some, a bad situation in the field. I missed the money, but I also found a spot where it was the right time to exit. And I wasn't scared to go talk to people who may exist on some perceptively social different plane than I am. If things aren't good for you with something that you're working on, or you see an opportunity to improve something you're working on, go friggin' talk to somebody. Don't accept a bad situation for what it is. Fix it. Just be the dude that fixes it.
One of the things that a lot of dudes don't realize is one of the biggest acts of courage you can have is to ask for help. Is to realize, like, oh, fuck, I'm out of my depth. I don't know where to go from here. Fire up a flare, set off an SOS, put the fucking bat signal, whatever you gotta do.
Someone will answer.
That's not weakness.
Well, I think that mindset they have carries over into the company, because we have people come to the counter. You might be a $20 customer or a $20,000 customer that day. You get treated the same. They're all there for the same reason. They just want to hang out, chat, and be treated like regular dudes. They want to talk about dude things. Like, they want to talk about guns. They want to talk about hunting. They want to talk. Again, we get suckered into politics all the time because you have to. You're in the gun industry. But people are just looking for that connection, and I think we're fucking lucky. Use the term blessed at the store, but man, it's just a great atmosphere. We get all that, so
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys.
You got it, man.
Thank you, Mike, for coming, sharing your story, man. It was awesome. Lucas, thanks once again.
That's always a good time.
All right. This has been the Grey Wage Podcast.
Appreciate you.